You say I make you nervous, a tragedy, I'm a beautiful disaster, a reckoning, you wonder how I got this way. You think I'm someone to be saved, someone to clean up and tame. Oh, some things never change, never change. You think I would look pretty on your arm once you cover up my bruises and battle scars, but it always ends the same. Can't bear the things I've had to face, got you crying on your knees in pain. Oh, some things never change, never change.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to try to take on day 3 here of the Daniel Howard trial. So we are going to get this airing again. I'll be viewing a lot of it mobily as I'm trying to move around things, listening to it. But I figure we need to try to get as aggressive as we can to try to finish this thing out. We've got days 1 and 2 in. It's not looking good for him. I can understand why he might be a little concerned. However, I have since acquired new information that appears to indicate that he wasn't fleeing. He was assisting in the return of a rental car for someone that was in town, and he is essentially just violated the terms of his bail. He brought his ankle monitor. I think it was more or less just a misfire on his part, because he thought, well, I'm going to get away with this. I'm bringing my ankle monitor. They're not going to violate me. And instead they violated his bond. So he's now on a no bail bonds hold. A hearing will eventually have to be held to determine if the alleged flight can be brought into trial. But I do know the defense put on their final witnesses. I assume that'll be taken on tomorrow. Potentially closings tomorrow afternoon, unless they explore that, have to have an evidentiary hearing. We might be looking at closings on Wednesday, and then the jury will get the case. So, like I said, it's important we try to push through as fast as we can on this. So we're going to go 1.5 times speed on this, and jump into day 3. Let's go to the courtroom.
Members of the jury, just to mention to you the very first day, you sometimes see some lawyer quote style in my walker. Shannon's on the Zoom, and then she's here first. So that's what I was sitting out there. She just assists me throughout the trial. Okay, we're ready to continue. Statement calls next witness.
You're going to take calls Tina Tippy.
Tina Tippy? Okay, Tina. Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. If you could come forward here, please. If you face my clerk, raise your right hand and be sworn in.
Please also swear that the testimony you're about to give is to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Thank you, ma'am. If you have a seat, everybody stand. You may fire this morning, sir. Thank you. Ma'am, could you please advise the jury what your name is and spell your name?
My name is Tina Tippy, T-I-P-K-E.
And Ms. Tippy, are you currently employed?
No, I'm retired.
Retired. And where did you retire from?
Kootenai County, Center.
Wasn't
911 center,
And so were you a dispatcher at the 911 center?
dispatcher call taker,
Okay. And how long were you a dispatcher for Kootenai County?
21 years.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
Did you work at the 911 center with Janice Wadsworth?
Yes,
And as a dispatcher, did you use the same CAD system and recording systems that Janice uses?
yes,
Were you working as a dispatcher on February 2nd, 2021?
yes,
And on that date, do you remember receiving a 911 call just before 10:45 in the evening from a Dan Howard?
yes,
And pursuant to that 911 call, did you dispatch any responders to his location?
I was leaving my car whenever I was, the call was taken in and going.
Okay. And may I approach your honor?
Okay.
Ms. Tipke, I'm showing you it marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 7A. Are you familiar with that exhibit?
Yes, I am.
And that's a CD or a compact disc, correct?
Yes,
And are you familiar with the contents of that disc?
yes,
And what is that exhibit?
it is the CD of the audio call that was taken when he called.
So this is the audio of the 911 call you just spoke of?
Correct.
Have you had a chance to listen to that audio?
Yes, I have.
Is it true and accurate as you remember it happening on February 2nd, 2021?
To my knowledge, yes.
And I'm going to show you it's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 7B. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes.
And what is 7B?
It's the transcribed call on the CD.
Okay. And do you see your initials on the CD?
Yes,
Do you see your initials on the transcript?
yes,
Were you able to listen to the audio as you read along the transcript?
yes,
And were you able to determine that they are identical?
yes,
Is that why you initialed them?
yes.
So the transcript is true and accurate like the audio?
To my knowledge, yes, it is. They match.
Your Honor, at this time I move to omit Plaintiff 7A and 7B into the record.
Don't check your 7A and 7B are admitted.
And Your Honor, I would also like to publish the audio for the jury, and I'd also like to give each of the jury members copies of the transcripts to follow along with as they listen to the audio and for the binders.
You may do so.
Did you just punch something? Dan? Dan? I need to go down to the front door. Okay, can you do that? I need to go down to the front door.
Your Honor, I have no further questions of the witness. Thank you. Cross-examination.
One, Mr. Wednesday, I have no questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You guys have been-
Kendy Thomas is next.
Say Deputy Thomas.
Yeah.
Deputy Thomas. Mayor, you Deputy Thomas? If you come forward, please. I'll have you face my clerk. Please raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, ma'am. You have a seat, ma'am. Put this in. You may, Mark.
Thank you, Judge. Ma'am, would you please state your full name and spell your last?
Miranda Thomas, and Thomas.
How are you employed?
I'm a patrol deputy with the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been employed?
Almost 4 years.
And are you close to the federal?
Yes.
And in Idaho, that means what?
I have full arrest powers in Idaho.
Back in February, specifically February 2nd, 2021, you were working as a patrol deputy in the Sheriff's Department.
Yes, sir.
How new a patrol deputy were you back then?
In patrol, I had only swapped over in August of 2020.
So pretty much brand new? On that particular evening, what was your shift?
Graveyards.
Okay, and those hours were what?
At the time, they were 10 p.m. to 8 a.m.
At some point, when you dispatched out to residents in Kootenai County, Idaho,
Yes.
what time was that?
Around 10 to 11 at night. I don't know the exact time.
What was the nature of the call?
It was aired as a suicide attempt.
How long did it take you to get there?
About 20 minutes?
Were you in a patrol car by yourself?
Yes.
When you got there, were other deputies still arriving?
Yes.
Did you wait for a while?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that?
We all decided that we were going to go in together due to the nature of the call because there was a gun involved and whatnot to
So approximately how many,
Sorry. You just pull the microphone a little closer to you and try to speak into that.
How about that?
That's better. Thank you.
approximately how many deputies then you added before going to that residence?
4 deputies and a sergeant.
Okay. Do you remember the address that you responded to?
I don't remember the numerics, but I remember the street. Wheat Ridge off of Highway 54.
Where did you all park or stage before you walked to the residence?
Just east of that road, pulled over on the north side.
Describe what you could see and or hear as you approached the residence.
As we were driving up, we couldn't see or hear anything.
I mean, once you got off foot after that car.
We saw the hill, exited the front door of the house screaming,
What was he screaming?
oh my God, and just sounded inaudible and intelligible, just moaning and screaming.
Did you later identify him
Yes.
as?
Daniel Howard?
Here today?
Yes.
Can you please point out where seated?
He's seated to your left in the gray suit.
Thank you. What was the nature of your duties that evening?
I, for the majority of it, sat with Dan as he introduced himself.
Okay. At one point, did you go into the house?
Yes.
And did you make any notations on your inside the house? Did you know what you did?
Yes.
What was that?
When I walked downstairs, I found a packed Victoria's Secret double bag. I noted that one of the washing machines was running, and we walked through and noticed that all the sinks were dry.
Was it the washer running or the dryer?
I believe it was the washer, the one on the left, if you look in the room from the doorway.
You don't know for certain whether it was the dryer or the
No,
washer?
I didn't check which one.
Just that one of those things was running when you got there?
Yes.
Was the Victoria's Secret bag open or closed?
Open.
Could you see the contents?
Yeah, it appeared to be women's clothes.
Did it appear to be packed?
Yes.
Was the nature of your assignment that you need to watch, be with Mr. Howard outside as well as later inside the
Yes.
residence? And so, were you able to notice behavior outside as well as inside?
Yes.
Can you describe his behavior?
Outside, he was moaning and yelling. He would scream, oh my God, he would ask what was going on, what were we doing. He would gag every so often and hold his knees, bend over in distress, or moan as if he was crying. But inside, he was more angry than upset.
What do you mean by that, more angry than upset?
He was angry with us for not allowing his son to come to the house. He'd slam his fist on the counter.
Did he cover his face up with his hands at times?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Leading order.
Overall.
How often?
Very often.
Could you see when he was making these moaning noises, when he was acting in behavior that you described to us, whether or not he had actual tears?
At no point did I observe any tears throughout the night.
At one point in the evening, did you take note of the shirt that he was wearing?
Yes.
What caught your attention?
There appeared to be deodorant marks on his shirt.
And why did that get your attention?
Because by that time it was almost midnight. And most people, if you put your clothes on in the morning and get deodorant on them, it's gone by midnight.
Were you wearing body cam that evening?
Yes, sir.
And did that capture your contact with Mr. Howard outside the residence?
Yes, sir.
As well as inside the residence?
I believe so.
Let me show you a couple of exhibits that have been marked already. 8D, 8D, 8D.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
My body camera from that night?
Then I have a depiction of your body cam that contained your contact information.
Yes, sir, it is.
And then take a look at the next one, 8D. Tell me if you recognize that.
I do.
What do you recognize that?
It's the transcript of that body camera.
Is that an accurate transcript of 8D?
Yes, sir.
Here, could you get 8D and 8D?
Any objection? There you go. Supposed to be edited?
Who published the name?
You may. Look at the lights down over the video. Mrs. Drake, can you still, are you okay if you do that? Okay.
Sir, where is she?
Upstairs in the bathroom.
Upstairs? Sir, what's your first name? Dan? Dan, can you have a seat for me? Yeah, you can sit if that's better for you. If that's better for you. I'm just trying to make you a little more comfortable, okay? Dan, my name's Miranda, okay? Dan, what can I do to help you right now?
Good.
Okay. I can see that neck, now reach for it. Thank you, sir. Sir, do you have anything else in your pockets? Okay. I know you're retired, right? Okay.
What's going on?
Sir, they have to do their job.
What is it?
They're gonna hold the scene in there. Medical's gonna go in there. They're gonna do their job.
Medical's gonna go in there and do their thing. This is their scene now.
Sir, stay over here with us. I'm gonna let them come up. Hi, guys. Huh? I honestly didn't see that when she showers. Hi, sir. Hey, over. You still better standing? I want you to pass out again.
Let's go.
Dan, you want my little deal?
No.
Okay. Can you tell us anything?
No, I think less more than one.
Okay. Just wrists instead of so wrists instead of gunshot. Yeah. Almost there as arms. You're there. Go that way. Is there anything I can do to help you? I know that's a stupid question, really, given the circumstances. Hey, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll let you do it. I'm sorry to inform you. Your life is faster. No, don't do that. Hey, Dan. It's good to see you. Oh my gosh.
No further questions. Thank you. Cross-examination.
So you said you met with a group of officers prior to responding to the house?
Yes.
And where was that
Where was that at? Just east of the residence on Highway 54, parking on the north side?
at? And at that time, did you become aware of a prior response to that residence 3 days?
Yes.
And were you aware that Ms. Howard had left the residence?
No.
So you don't know that day whether it was coming or going?
Correct.
Do you know when Ann had taken a shower?
No.
Do you know if it was day or night shifts?
No.
And you said that at this point you had just finished, when did you finish your post?
Like the academy?
Yes.
June of the year before?
And then there's a process where you do training where you're with officers?
Yes.
And when did you finish your,
January of 2021?
and in that, would you agree that, had you ever previously met Ann before?
No.
Had you ever had an encounter to see how he reacts to stress or shock?
No.
Thank you, Reader.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Give me a second.
Lieutenant Sifford is next.
Okay. Where's it? As you go forward, please face my clerk, raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Sir, can you state your whole name and spell your last?
Sure. Zachary Sifford, Sifford,
How are you currently employed?
with Kootenai County Sheriff's Office.
What do you do there?
I'm a patrol lieutenant.
How long have you been with the sheriff's department?
Since 2015.
As a patrol lieutenant, what are your duties?
A lot of administrative duties for the patrol division, scheduling.
Are you certified?
Yes, sir.
What level?
Advanced.
Were you working on February 2nd of 2021?
I was.
What was your rank then?
I was a patrol sergeant.
What were your duties then?
I led a shift, a graveyard shift at the time, so between 4 to 6 deputies.
At some point on the evening of February 2nd, 2021, did you and a group of deputies respond to the Howard residence in Apple, Idaho?
Yes, I did.
At what time was this?
I'd have to look at it was late in the evening. We just come on to shift, so it'd be late evening hours.
When you got to the Howard residence, did the group of you wait until everybody was assembled?
We did, yes.
So it was you and about how many deputies?
In total, there was probably 5, maybe 6.
And did you guys as a group approach the residence?
We did, yes.
At some point, were you granted entry into the residence?
Yes.
By whom?
The deputies had entered residence upon my arrival. When I got there, they'd already been inside.
Did you take steps to make sure that the scene was secure in terms of the house, Kendy's body, any potential evidence?
Yes, we did.
How did you take those steps?
Well, we entered the house, we cleared the house. We also had deputies positioned at, in the driveway and alongside the house in case folks were to show up. We could keep everybody away.
And did that include any family members of the house?
That's correct.
Was that to keep the scene secure until detectives could get a search warrant and conduct an investigation?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, did that take place? Was the scene kept secure?
Yes.
Did you yourself remain at the scene for a period of time?
I did, yes.
About how long?
I'd say I was there several hours. I was there after the detectives began their investigation.
During that several hours, were you able to observe Dan Howard?
Yes.
Dan Howard appeared.
Yes.
Please point out, describe where he's seated, tell us what he's wearing.
Maybe to your left.
Next to his attorney dressed in a gray coat.
Yes, sir.
In your observation of Mr. Howard there at his home, did anything catch your attention?
Yes.
What was that?
His demeanor and just his overall attitude, I would say.
What about his demeanor caught your attention?
The demeanor was different to me because there was, we spent a lot of time wanting to make sure we were comfortable as deputies, offering us coffee or food, and constantly offering us something which was kind of strange as Kenny's body was in plain sight, and it didn't seem organic, it didn't seem the right setting.
Did you ever observe him covering his face or making noises that suggested he was in grief?
He was making noises, yes.
Did you ever see any actual tears?
No, he did not.
Have you been to any suicides in your career?
Yes.
Approximately how many?
Ballpark 100.
And based on your experience, was there anything unusual about this alleged suicide?
Yes, typically there's a lot of care and dignity for the loved one, for the body, and that was not the case in this event.
What do you mean?
Typically, family members will beg us for a pillow or a sheet or something to cover the body or to make them more comfortable. In this case, the female was naked, exposed, and there were a lot of deputies and personnel going in and out, and there just didn't seem to be any care for the dignity of the body.
No further questions?
Thank you, President.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, have you previously met Mr. Howard?
No.
You're aware that he's former patrol,
Yes.
and you're aware that he was a patrol officer,
Yes.
and how long he time there?
Yes.
And like, in your experience, you would assume that he also has responded to teens?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you know whether or not officers told him when they arrived that they need to do their thing?
I would imagine we would tell him that.
He would understand that more than most of the people that you're responding to, correct?
Objection. That calls into potential speculation into counsel's compliance to the
I'm going to overrule. It's fair. Cross based on the records.
Can you repeat it, sir?
He would be, based on his experience, when told something like that, he would be in a position to understand that law enforcement has to do their thing, correct?
I believe that's possible, yes.
And so he's differently situated than many of the suicides that you respond to.
Objection. That calls for speculation as well.
Are there?
Okay.
You don't know his state of mind on that day, correct?
I do not.
Law enforcement was there, they were there, the whole time clear?
No, sir.
It was many hours, correct?
Many hours, yes.
And so in that time, you're saying that within many hours, he offered to get you food and water
It was water, something to eat, coffee,
over the course of many hours.
more towards the beginning of the contact.
Redirect.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You can sit down.
Deputy Wheeler is next.
Deputy Wheeler. Deputy Wheeler, you're up. Morning, sir. Morning. Could you come forward, please? I'm going to face my clerk, raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Thank you, sir. We're going to see if there's a stand. Sir, I noticed you had some papers with you. Is that a report or something?
It is.
I noticed you placed it face down.
Yes, sir.
All right. That's fine. Just let us know if you need to refer to it so that we know if you're referring to it or not.
Okay.
You may go ahead.
Thank you. Can you say your name and spell your last?
Benjamin Wheeler, W-H-E-E-L-E-R,
How are you employed?
as a deputy for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been so employed?
Approximately 4 years.
I assume that you've gone through Idaho post.
Yes, sir.
Back on February 2nd, 2021, were you working?
Yes, I was.
How new of a deputy were you?
Very new.
Were you still in field training?
I was.
What does that mean?
It's about 14 weeks worth of on-the-job training with a field training officer. I was in week 5 or 6.
So kind of halfway through it?
Yes.
Maybe a little less than that?
Correct.
Who was your field training officer on February 2nd, 2021?
Former Deputy Nye.
So Deputy 9 no longer works for the Sheriff's Department?
He does not.
On that date, February 2nd, 2021, in the evening hours, did you get dispatched along with Deputy 9 to the Howard residence in Appalachia?
Yes.
And did you and other deputies wait until everyone from the law enforcement perspective had arrived before contact with residents?
We did. There was a group of us that gathered before going to the residence.
As you walked up to the residence, did anything catch your attention?
Yes, at the garage door was open, there was a dog in the garage, and I didn't really hear much of any sound walking up to the house.
Did you go into the house through the garage or another way?
Into the house through the front door.
Did anyone let you in or invite you in?
Mr. Howard met me at the front door. Yes.
Is he here today? Is he here today?
Yes, he is.
Can you please point him out and describe the seat? Tell us what he's wearing.
He's seated to the left of you. Looks like a gray suit coat, purple shirt.
What was initially the behavior of Mr. Howard when you were out there?
He was very upset and distraught, being very loud.
Okay. Did you and other deputies go into the house and assess the situation?
Yes.
What was your job pursuant to your training officer that evening?
My job was to go and find the victim and assess the situation before medical could come in.
Did you do that?
Yes.
Can you describe what happened?
I initially talked to Mr. Howard outside the front door, and then I walked past him into the house, looked around the living room, didn't see her, and I didn't remember exactly where she was supposed to be, so I went back out and asked Mr. Howard where his wife was, and he said that she was in the bathtub upstairs, and so then I went back upstairs and found her.
Was this with Deputy
Deputy? Yes.
And can you describe what you saw in the bathroom?
I saw a woman naked in the bathtub with an apparent gunshot wound. There was blood around her, coming out of her mouth.
Anything else you could observe in the bathtub besides her?
Yes, there was a gun laying to the right of her in the water, and there was the water was tinted red.
Could you see the gun through the water at the bottom of the tub?
Yes.
Did you mention you saw shell casing as well, or not?
I don't recall.
From there, what did you do?
Once her pulse was checked, no pulse was found by Deputy Nye, called for medical, and then they came in and announced that she was deceased. And then we cleared the residence upstairs to make sure no one else was in the house. And then I stood by.
At some point, did you talk to Mr. Howard after you observed his wife dead upstairs in the bathroom?
I did.
Where did this take place?
Out in the front yard, outside the front door.
And what was that contact all about?
I was trying to get a timeline from Mr. Howard when he had last seen his wife, and let him know that she was deceased.
Were you at some point after that assigned the duty of taking photographs?
Yes.
Who gave you that duty?
I believe it was Deputy Nye.
And did you end up taking photographs?
I did.
Let me show you a group of photographs that are marked as 16A through 16F. I'm just going to point to you and flip them down briefly, okay? You recognize 16A through 16F?
I do.
What do you recognize those two?
Photos that I took.
Would those photos include the stairs going up and down?
Yes.
The bathroom where Kenny was?
Yes.
Kenny yourself?
Yes.
The downstairs area?
Yes.
These accurate photographs taking what you saw?
Yes.
Yes, sir. And then 16A through 16F?
No objection. 16 to 16 hours.
Move to publish the same?
You may.
Okay, we'll start with 16A. Tell us, would it be okay to move that to the well?
Sure. Mr. Wheeler, if you'd like to step into the area that we call well, if you want to observe photographs.
Can you tell us where you're at, what it shows?
I'm standing just inside the front door area, and that's photographed the stairway leading up to the bathroom and then down to the basement.
So basically you're in the living room.
Yes.
16B?
That's just another photograph of the stairs going up to the bathroom.
See?
That's a photograph from the stairway into the bathroom where Kendy is.
Can you see the top contains hair?
Yes, right there next
People
to
with their hair.
next to the bottles of shampoo and conditioner.
And then, etc.
That's a photograph of the inside of the bathroom, including Kendy in the bathtub, and a person phone on the counter.
And her glasses as well, they're on the counter?
Yes.
Are those items, her purse, her glasses, her phone, are they within arm's reach of the bathtub?
No, it would be difficult to grab those from where the bathtub is.
16E.
And that's just another photograph of the whole counter, showing those items from the previous photo.
16A.
And that's a photograph, another angle, showing the towel rack and then Kendy in the bathtub.
So with 16F and the next one, 16G, had Kendy's body been moved in any fashion whatsoever?
No.
This is just how she was when you got her.
Yes.
16G.
And that's just a view from up top overall of Kendy.
So are those bubbles there in the lower half of the photograph?
Yes, they are.
And what about the water temperature? Did you put your hand in there and see how warm that water was?
I don't remember if I put my hand in there, but I'm fairly certain I put my hand above the water and felt that it was so warm.
16H.
And that's a photograph of the firearm next to her in the water.
69.
That's a photograph of the stairway leading down to the basement.
16J.
That's a photograph in the basement, I believe right outside a laundry room with inside a partially packed bag in the vacuum cleaner.
So basically, the stairs going down
Yes,
lead to this area right here.
correct.
16K. What's that?
That is a photograph of a folder on the counter, the bar counter downstairs. It appears to be from an attorney's office at law, as it says.
And then 16L.
That's a photograph I took of a handwritten set of assets that appear to be with kind of split.
Where was that in relationship to the attorney documents we saw in the proceeding?
It was next to it on the counter, on the bar counter.
Okay. Last one of yours I have is 16M. Tell us what that is, please.
That's a photograph of the washer and dryer. And I believe it was the dryer showing that it still had time left on it and it was going.
That was my next question, is which is which?
I believe the dryer was on the left.
The dryer on the left has a 6 there, a digital 6 is a screen. What's that?
That's showing the time that's left in that cycle, I believe.
So when you walk downstairs, after talking to Mr. Howard, after viewing Kendy, after getting your camera, that dryer still had 6 minutes to go?
Yes.
How long had you been there at that point, like the time the dryer, when you took a photograph, had 6 minutes to go?
I don't recall exactly. I would say maybe 30 minutes. Does the photo have a timestamp on it?
We'll get that evidence out to other people. I'm interested though, were there things inside the dryer?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever look inside it, or was that another deputy detective?
I looked into it. And
What did you see?
I can see that there was clothing, appeared to be bath towels, and possibly like a rug or a bathrobe.
So it appeared to you that bath towels and bathrobes were drying in the dryer about a half hour after you got there, and the dryer was still running?
Yes.
You can take your seat. Later on, did a detective take photographs when you were there of basically the same things that you photographed?
Yes, I believe so.
Was that Detective Jerry Northrup?
Yes.
Okay. I want to show you 3 of his photographs. Start with 63C. Tell me if you recognize 63C.
I do.
What do you recognize?
The downstairs basement area near the bar counter.
Showing that wood stove.
It is, yes.
And then 63D. That basically the same thing from a different angle.
It is.
And the last one, 63, again, same thing from a different angle.
Yes.
And I'm going to take these photographs, but are they accurate photographs showing downstairs the wood stove when you viewed that area?
Yes, they are.
With the 63C, D, and M.
They'll get it. Those will be admitted.
Would you publish the same?
Amen.
Can you move that well again, Judge?
Sure.
Leave that right there. It's kind of fading out on us.
Take the lights off.
Right.
Background. Maybe you gotta be here to do this.
So, what are we looking at here in 62C?
This is a photograph in the basement area. It's like just to the right of the bar counter where the notepad list and then the attorney's folder was located.
It's kind of hard to see that wood stove, isn't it?
It is.
So here, looking at 63C, we can see something on top of the wood stove, right there. What is that?
I believe that's a kettle of some sort.
Like a dehumidifier that you use on a wood stove?
Yes.
Like a kettle that you put water in that would get hot, that would sit on your wood stove to dehumidify a house that ran on wood heat?
Yes, that's what it appears to be.
Okay. And then 63D? Is that just a different photo showing a different angle of downstairs to include the wood stove with the pot on it?
Yes, it is.
Here on that bar counter, is there anything there that we've seen a picture of already?
Yes.
What's that?
That handwritten list and then the attorney paperwork.
Okay. We'll stop close up in terms of your photos.
Yes.
All right, and the last one I have from Detective Norfolk, you've been able to admit into evidence, 63 M. Same thing, different angle?
Yes.
Okay, showing the things that you've already described.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me take your seat.
Thank you.
Were you there a long time that evening?
I believe several hours.
And during that time span, I think you talked about some of the things that you've done. During these different segments of time when you were given these assignments, were you wearing a body cam?
Yes, I was.
And did that body cam capture, for instance, your contact with Mr. Howard, reviewing Kendy, those types of things?
Yes, it did.
And let's start with, did you end up with a couple of different body cams, at least in terms of exhibits?
I did.
Okay, let's start with 9A and 9B. You recognize 9A?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that?
The DVD recording of my body cam video.
Does that capture a portion of the time that you were there to include your contact with Howard?
It does.
And then,
I believe that is the transcript from my body cam video.
is that correlated with 9A?
It does.
Basically, the exact transcription.
Yes.
Is 9A, at least in terms of what it captured, correct answer in terms of your body cam, but you do that now?
Yes.
Would you get 9A, 9B?
Okay.
This will be admitted. Will be published. Mr. Berger, this body camera video will show his entry into the bathroom and so forth.
Yes, I believe so. It's been a while since I looked at it.
Okay. And I know that media's being vigilant about this, but just a reminder, of course, not to show anything. Thank you. You may publish it. Sir? Come on out. Come on out, sir. Over here, come on. Sit up here, man. Let me see. Okay. You want me to take over or you do? No, I got one more check. I don't know. Why do you ask? Sir? Upstairs in the bathroom. She's upstairs in the bathroom? Okay, upstairs in the bathroom. Let's go. My pocket. She's in the bathtub. Send in medical. Yep. Central 2207, send in medical. No, no hurry. Not seeing anything. There's no hurry, no nothing. Secret is even mentioned. Okay. Yes, it doesn't mean you're going to accident or anything. Here, here. Grandkids? Grandkids? Let me sit right here. Yes, sir. Sir. Answers? What's going on? What is it?
Hey, Dan? Dan? Hey, Dan, I'm Deputy Wheeler. I'm sorry to inform you, but your wife is passed, sir.
No, God,
Hey, Dan? Hey, Dan? Is there anyone that we can call for you? Anyone that's...
Get attention to my kids. Oh, God. Do it.
Is there anyone we can call to give you some support or anything like that? Any family that...
My son.
Your son? You want us to give him a call? You have your son's number? I'll get your son's number from you. Does he live nearby? Right. Okay. What's your son's name, man? Wyatt. Do you know Wyatt's phone number off the top of your head?
683. 0832.
Okay. Is there anyone else that you'd like me to call? Or you want me to just get old Wyatt? I'll give your son a call, okay? Is there anything else we can do for you, sir?
We can tell him.
You want me to tell him anything, or do you want me to just tell him to come down here to see you? Okay.
God, I don't know. I don't kill something here.
Dan, I know this is hard, but when is the last time that you saw your wife alive? I know this is tough. How long ago? Can you recall?
What time is it?
Did you call 911 when you heard the gunshot?
No.
Okay.
I didn't. What? I didn't think it was a gunshot. I was downstairs, getting going. Somebody slipped me on the floor or something. I don't know.
When was the last time you saw your wife in person with the gun?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half? Okay.
Hour and a half or something. I don't know. I really don't know. I put it out there.
It's about 11:15.
Maybe 9:30.
9:30 or so?
I think.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. Oh my God. Wyatt,
You want to give Wyatt a call? Do you want me to just tell Wyatt to come here and meet you? Or
I'm going to tell him.
you want me to let you tell him, or you want me to give him a call? I'll just tell him to come down here.
Somebody's telling me, sir.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it is. We'll just give him a call and tell him to come down here, okay? Okay. Is there some shoes or something I can get for you? Okay. Let's hang out with him. Hers? No. You see that get from? Hey, Dan? Dan, do you know your wife's date of birth?
4:37.
Okay, thank you.
minutes break. I don't know how long the council take. We see the time to take a break.
I just think it's ready time for a good morning break, so I would take 10 minutes. I'm here not to discuss this case about yourself. All rise for the jury. Okay, we'll be back at 11.
What time did the judge say there was a 10-minute break? Okay.
Obviously, been back, correct?
Yes.
Had various parts of your taking photographs of your dad,
Yes.
and had essentially the lengthy time that you spent waiting for detectives to get there with the search warrant, had some of that been redacted.
Yes.
What we watched there showed Mr. Howard with his hands over his face most of the time. Was that consistent with basically the entire time you were there when he was inside sitting in that stool?
It was.
Did you ever at any time, whether outside with Mr. Howard or inside, or he was seated at that bar with his hands over his face, ever see any tears?
I did not.
We've got one more video to show you. It's been marked as 10A. You look at that time, you recognize it?
I do.
You recognize that.
You're recording my body cam footage.
This will be, of course, very, very long. Detective time, right?
It was.
And this is only a couple of minutes long.
Yes.
Is that an accurate recording of essentially what we can see from there?
It is.
And 10B as well.
That is a transcript of my body cam video.
Okay, it's transcript of the 10.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
It is.
10A and 10B?
Okay, 10 and 10D are good.
Who published it?
Good, you may publish them. Thank you. What's the examination, Mr. Johnson?
Good morning.
And you arrived at around 20
I believe that was the time I was dispatched. Maybe it was the time I arrived. No, that's what I wrote. That's in my report that I responded at approximately 22:46.
And so when you say you responded, that means that you lied.
Usually in my reports, that is the time that I head to the call.
And then on the body cam, it has a time up there. That time matched what the time was.
I couldn't see the time from over here.
Okay. But you've had a chance to review the video?
I have.
And did it seem to match?
Yes.
Now, Deputy Nye, or your field training officer Nye, he checked for pulse, correct?
Yes.
And you took other pictures on that day, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, which one?
You in?
Do you recognize, I'm referring to what's been marked as defense B1 through 9. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
I did.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
Yes.
Do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
I did.
Do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
I did.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
Yes.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
I did.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
I did.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
I did.
And finally, do you recognize this photo?
Yes.
Did you take that photo?
I did.
Move to admit defense B1 through 9 order.
Any question? None. Those good.
How long were you still on field training after this?
I was in week 5 or 6, and the field training process is approximately 14 weeks.
Fairly early on.
Yes.
Was this your first suicide call?
I believe it was.
There's a lack of foundation with this suicide.
Call room.
And
All right. I'll sustain the objection as to the characterization. Perhaps you can rephrase it.
Give me a question.
Leave it.
Deputy, was this your first reported suicide call?
I believe it was the first reported. Yes.
At Victoria's Secret bag, let me back up. Were you involved with the meeting of other officers prior to your arrival?
As far as, could you further clarify that?
Prior to making contact with Dan at his residence, had you met with other officers prior to responding?
We grouped up together and then went to the residence.
At that meeting, were you aware of law enforcement call from Kootenai County?
I don't recall.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Can you adjourn? Thank you, sir. You may step in.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Lynette Acevedo.
We're going to do Lynette Acevedo.
Yes.
You come forward, ma'am. Case my clerk, please raise your right hand and be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You'd have to see your witness stand. You may mark.
If you could please state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Lynette K. Acevedo, Acebedo.
Lynn, how you feeling this morning?
Not great.
Is that why you're wearing a mask?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to slide that mic just a little bit closer to you. Make sure you speak nice and clear and slow, okay?
Okay.
What is your occupation?
I'm the Chief Deputy Coroner of Kootenai County
How long have you been in that position?
since 2015.
What exactly is a coroner?
As in, what do we do?
Sure.
Okay. We respond, or we are called to unattended deaths, anything medical, traffic, homicides, suicides, accidents, and natural disease processes.
Is that essentially what a deputy coroner would do as well?
Yes.
Chief deputy coroner?
Yes.
Do you hold any special training to perform that job?
I do. I am also an American Board Medical Legal Death Investigator.
Can you briefly describe what training is involved for a death investigator?
We go through all kinds of training from natural disease processes, working with several agencies, blood scatter patterns, injury patterns, any and all aspects of death.
Do you participate in
ongoing training throughout your years as a chief deputy coroner to stay up to date in your field.
Yes.
And is there a difference between a death investigator and a coroner?
It varies in county to county and state to state in what training they have.
Does the coroner have more training than a death investigator?
The coroner has several different backgrounds. They can run from medical doctors to plumbers to a plumber.
Does the coroner take any role in issuing official documents?
We do.
Can you describe that process?
We issue death certificates.
And does that death certificate include certain types of information?
It does.
Is there a process by which the coroner, just generally speaking, fills out that death certificate form?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
Anytime a doctor will not sign a death certificate, either they don't feel comfortable signing it, even if it's their patient, the coroner's office can be assigned to sign that death certificate. And in any case that is not a natural death, the coroner's office does sign all death certificates.
Why do coroners investigate unattended deaths?
To make sure that there is nothing suspicious, no trauma, nothing other than a natural disease process that occurred.
In your career, how many deaths have you attended?
Thousands.
And would that be attended as well as unattended deaths?
Yes.
Would that be natural causes?
Yes.
Accidents?
Yes.
Suicides?
Yes.
And homicides?
Yes.
How does your role intersect with law enforcement?
We're 100% connected. We typically work side by side.
If there is a call for an unattended death, does law enforcement reach out to you?
They do.
And do you respond to death scenes?
Yes.
When you were there, did you conduct your own investigation?
Yes.
Can you describe generally what you would do if you responded to an unattended death?
Initially, we would get a call from dispatch and or a detective letting us know where we're going. We would go get to the scene. We would approach the first officer or deputy on the scene. And we then would go to our detective and process the scene with them. Or sometimes it's after they've been there for a while. We would process the scene, take our photos, call the funeral home, get them processed for transfer to a funeral home.
Do you also assist in transporting bodies for autopsy?
Yes.
And what is an autopsy?
It's a complete full forensic examination of the body inside and out.
Who decides whether a body in an unattended death is sent for autopsy?
We do, the coroner's office.
What is the point of sending a body for autopsy?
There's sometimes injuries and or natural disease process inside bodies that we cannot see. So we want to make sure that we're documenting any and all injuries and or illnesses.
Is it always necessary to have an autopsy in cases of unattended deaths?
No.
Can you give me an example?
If an elderly person is at their residence and they pass away from a natural disease process, we will not send for an autopsy. If somebody falls down and hits their head, we would send for an autopsy to see what kind of injuries they sustained, whether it would be from their head to their chest. If people are young and sick at home, young people shouldn't be dying at home, so we'll send because of an age. We send all car crashes, we send suicides, depending on wound tracks, and we send all homicides, or potential homicides.
Who performs autopsies?
Forensic pathologists.
Does Kootenai County currently employ a forensic pathologist?
We do not.
Who does Kootenai County utilize for autopsies?
The Spokane Medical Examiner's Office.
And do you facilitate in getting those bodies to the Spokane County Medical Examiner?
Yes.
Is it common for you to see bodies after they have been at the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office?
Yes.
Can you tell me what circumstances would allow you to see a body after autopsy?
They get returned to a funeral home of choosing, and we're often there on another case, following up on another case. Sometimes we'll go back and look at bodies just as part of our ending process.
Do you receive information from the Spokane County Medical Examiner as part of your investigation?
A total case, yes. Once it's finished, yes, we get a full report.
Do you also receive information from law enforcement?
We do.
What's your approach to witness?
2 minutes.
In the interest of jurors, I'm just going to hold this here for you. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What do you recognize this to be?
It's my resume?
Is this accurate and up to date?
Yes.
Does this accurately reflect your training and experience?
Yes.
Move to admit states 80.
Can you touch it? 680 is a bit.
Thank you. You can have it, clerk. What is cause of death?
Cause of death can be anything from, natural disease process or cancer, age, down to suicide, homicide, blunt force trauma from car crashes, anything of that nature.
Is cause of death a lengthy list?
Very.
What about manner of death?
There are 5 types of manner of death.
What are those 5 types?
Homicide, suicide, natural accident, and could not be determined.
Who makes the determination as to manner of death in Kootenai County?
The coroner.
And is that determination made based on the various sources of information and investigation that you just described?
Yes.
Is a manner of death determined by the coroner in unattended death cases?
Yes.
Is that different from cause of death?
It's a totality of cause of death.
In the, I think you said thousands of deaths that you have attended, are you able to ballpark for me how many of them have been suicides?
Oh gosh, hundreds, probably between 300 and 500.
Can you ballpark for me how many have been homicides?
I'd say less than 20.
You described that the coroner does their investigation and makes the death determination. Can that death determination ever be changed?
Yes.
What would cause a coroner's death determination to change?
New insight into a case, whether new investigations were done, new evidence was found, things of that nature.
Does undetermined as the manner of death, would that be the category that is most frequently changed?
Yes.
And would that be because that is changed to one of the other four manners of death?
Yes.
Were you employed on February 2nd of 2021?
Yes.
Were you chief deputy coroner at that time?
Yes.
Did you respond to the unattended death of an individual by the name of Kendy Howard?
Yes.
How long after law enforcement arrived did you arrive?
It was several hours after.
When you arrived, can you just sort of briefly describe the scene that you walked into?
I entered the residence into a living room area and was directed to an upstairs bathroom area and bedroom.
Who was present at the home at that time?
Dan Howard and law enforcement.
Did you have any interactions with Dan Howard?
No.
Was he pointed out to you by law enforcement?
No.
When you were directed upstairs, what did you do next?
I did a complete walkthrough of the area that I was going to be investigating and started taking photos shortly after of the entire scene.
Why would a coroner take photos of areas of the house that did not have a body in it?
It's part of an overall investigation that we do. With scene investigations on our side, we're looking at things differently than law enforcement in a lot of ways. There's just different investigative skills that we have, that we share with law enforcement, that we're just looking at things differently.
Then I'm going to approach you with what has been marked as states 17G Zoom, 17J, 17I, 17H, and 17G. Okay, I'm just going to kind of flip through these photos for you. Let me know if you want me to go slower. Do you recognize these photos?
I do.
What do you recognize them to be?
My photos.
And are these photos of the house before you took photos of the body?
Yes.
And as far as 17G Zoom goes, and 17G just by itself, is 17G Zoom a zoomed in portion of 17G?
Yes.
Okay. Move to admit 17G, HIJ, and 17G Zoom.
Any objection? Those will be admitted.
Okay, Lynn, I'm going to start you off with 17G. Move to publish.
You may publish it.
Thank you. Lynn, what part of the house are we looking at here?
It's the master bedroom.
Was there something about this part of the master bedroom that caught your attention?
No, it's just an overall at first.
Okay. 17I. Why did you take this picture?
In this particular picture, there's, I don't know if you can see them, but there's little tiny shards of glass on the carpet.
And 17H.
It's a closer close-up photo of the carpet with the glass.
you also document where the body was located?
I did.
Where was the body located?
In the bathtub, in the upstairs bathroom.
Can you describe for me what you observed when you walked in that bathroom?
I observed a clean bathroom. It was very clean. It was, but there was a purse on the counter. There was a cell phone on the counter, and there was a female laying in the bathroom.
Did you document what you observed in that bathroom as you documented other parts of the house?
Yes.
Permission to approach?
You may.
Okay, then I'm going to just put those there for just a second. Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as 17A, B, C, D, E, and F. I'm going to put these. Do you recognize these photos?
Yes.
What do you recognize them to be?
Those are my photos.
Are these accurate photographs that you took?
Yes.
Do they clearly depict the scene as you observed it that night? Move to admit 17A through F.
17A through F are admitted.
Move to publish.
You may publish them.
Okay. Lynn, what observations did you make initially about Kendy Howard?
It just seems abnormal. The way her body is in the bathtub appears abnormal to me.
I'm going to show you 17D. And as I'm doing that, if you would elaborate on what you felt was abnormal about the positioning.
So in this picture, one of the things that kind of struck me is that her hair is across her face, which she pulls her hair up to take a bath. It is in a clip, and so why would she?
Results.
Judge, I can ask the witness to rephrase that, I think.
Okay. Also, sustain. Move the jury. Jury will disregard the very last part of the phrase, the last part of the question. Okay. Lady, so the answer was that kind of struck her as odd because the hair was across her face. That's fine. The part about precisely what she did to take a bath was speculation, so I'll strike that part.
Were you able to observe whether or not Kendy Howard's hair was up or down?
Yes.
Was it up or down?
Up.
Was there something holding it up?
I can't tell what it is.
Okay. Were you able to observe it that night?
That it's up?
Was there was something in her hair?
I did not know.
Okay. Was there hair that was not being held up?
Yes.
And that's what struck you as odd?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything about the bath water that struck you as odd?
It didn't seem blood tinged enough for a bullet wound.
Objection, foundation.
I'll ask that you lay more foundation for that.
Of the thousands of deaths that you have attended, have you attended deaths that involved water?
Yes.
Have you attended, let me back up. Have there been many deaths that you have attended that involved water?
Yes.
And of those many deaths that you have attended that involved water, did they also involve injuries that resulted in blood?
Yes.
And of those many deaths that you attended involving water and involving blood, have you had observations to observe blood in water?
Yes.
What about the bath water in this case drew your attention?
There wasn't enough blood in the water.
Have
Objection,
you,
foundation. Overruled.
have you also had opportunities to observe deaths that involved gunshot wounds?
Yes.
And of those deaths that you had the opportunity to observe that involved gunshot wounds, did those deaths involve blood from those gunshot wounds?
Yes.
And have you had the opportunity to observe the amount of blood as a result of those gunshot wounds?
Yes.
Many times?
Yes.
I'm going to show you E. Is this what you are describing?
Yes.
I'm going to show you F. Was there a reason you took this picture?
The way the blood was lying
Objection,
on
non-responsive. Overruled.
the way the blood was lying on her skin didn't appear to lie naturally. If she was lying in a tub and shot herself in the mouth, that blood pattern is off.
Struck you as
Objection,
odd.
foundation. You can go for it.
You can approach. We're going to take this up in a little bit more detail with the attorneys, so we're Jesse, you can state your objection in more detail.
Thank you, Your Honor. And this is no regard of offense to the veto, but the coroner's job is not to be a blood expert or discuss lines, or that they coordinate with medical examiners, law enforcement, or basically they have the role. But they don't have the experience of medical professionals to give expert opinions on blood lines, blood loss, all that. Here we have a associate's degree with a medical certificate. That is not proper foundation for to give an opinion on blood lines are off, or how much blood should there have been, or the water's too dark. I understand only showed 2 photos when they're emphasizing that point, but there hasn't been enough foundation to elicit that testimony.
Thank you. Ms. Jocelyn, your response.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, Ms. Acevedo was noticed to the defense as an expert in this case. She gave testimony at the grand jury where she talked about all manners of things that are involved in being a death investigator and a coroner. Those included her observations of things that were odd, strange, and different from what she would expect to see based on the thousands of deaths that she has attended over the course of her career. She is very experienced. She has seen thousands of deaths. She was noticed to the defense. And Judge, her testimony here today is not going into the areas of medical opinions. She is noting things that, based on her training and experience, stood out to her as being odd. She ultimately is involved in making a determination, and the things that she is noting are what part of what led her to that determination.
Thank you.
Your Honor, just because an expert is listed, the jury still needs to hear the proper foundation on what their experience is and the scope of their expertise. And their opinion is limited to that scope of expertise. There has been no foundation for an expert opinion. Whether or not they've been listed as an expert, still has to go through that process.
Thank you. Well, Ms. Acevedo testified to being the chief deputy coroner for Kootenai County, that she has attended thousands of deaths, and that she's ballparking between 300 to 500 suicides, less than 20 homicides. She described her. She didn't necessarily describe her training in great detail, but she explained what her training was. Plaintiff's Exhibit 80 has been admitted into evidence, and so it's in evidence, which lists her CV or resume. Shows her extensive work history as a chief deputy coroner since 2004. Indicates she's had hundreds of hours of training in all types of death. Has worked hundreds of death scenes along with multi-person death scenes. On the stand, she indicated it being in the thousands. She described her role as a chief deputy coroner in determining causes and manners of death and certifying those. I think she's certainly established expertise by knowledge, skill, and experience, as well as training and education, to testify in these areas as to cause of death, manner of death. She's testified as to from her experience, what was suspicious about the scene. That seems certainly well within her province as a coroner and as an expert, based on, again, training, experience, education, and all that. This is all well within her purview to testify to. Certainly, there are certainly grounds for cross-examination. It doesn't mean her opinion is unassailable, but in the court's view, her testimony would be helpful in the jury understanding an area outside of the normal person's expertise. And again, looking at 702, I think she's well within it. She's been disclosed no surprise here. And I agree. I mean, just simply listing her as an expert in discovery doesn't mean she is an expert, but based on her testimony here today, I find that she is in this area, and testimony elicited is appropriate. So I'm overruling the objection.
You know, I can indicate what we would want the state to do, and we would expect to do the same with our experts, is to lay the proper foundation and tender to the court as an expert in whatever. What the fear is that they're going to try to bootstrap someone else's work on bruising or anything like that she's not an expert in. And so we would ask that the state tender a witness as an expert in a certain category.
Thank you, Judge. I don't mean to cut you off. I just like to respond to that.
You may briefly.
Thank you. I'm an attorney that worked in another jurisdiction prior to coming to Idaho, and in that jurisdiction, the rules specifically required tendering of experts and a finding by the court. That is not within the state of Idaho's rules. State of Idaho rules fall under 702. The state has certainly complied with that, and there is no need for a formal tendering under the rules in Idaho.
I agree. There's not a requirement for a formal tender, and if there's an attempt to bootstrap something that's outside expertise, then certainly I'll sustain an objection to it. But at this point, She's testified to her credentials. She's going to move into her testifying consistent with those that I'm allowing. All right, objection to the rule, please, Jury Bathtub. Council, I'll probably still plan to break it and signal right about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Take members of the jury. You can see. Overrule the objection. You may continue on the cross.
Your Honor. Just for the record, that was 17F. When you were explaining why you took this photo.
Correct. Again, the live resting on which skin didn't appear to be in a normal form for someone that has shot themselves intraoral.
You used the phrase intraoral, what does that mean?
Inside the mouth.
I'm going to approach you with a couple more photos. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. So, got a couple more that are marked zoom, 17A zoom, 17A zoom 2, and 17C zoom. Do you recognize these? Did these correspond with not being zooms of the photos we just previously looked at? And I'm also going to show you 17M. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What do you recognize this to be?
A photo that I took of Kendy's feet.
Just accurately depicted as you observed it that night?
Yes.
So it makes 17M, 17C zoom, 17A zoom, and 17A zoom 2.
No objection? Was there admitted? You seek to publish these?
Yeah, publish. This is what's been marked as 17M. Can you describe what we're looking at in this picture?
It's a picture of Miss Howard's feet as they were missing in the tub.
Why did you take this picture?
It's a strange position for somebody's feet to be in a bathtub.
Was there anything else about the water that drew your attention about, well, I'll rephrase. Was there anything else about the scene itself that drew your attention?
I observed that it didn't appear to be a natural bath setting, in that, as a female myself, when I take a bath, I typically have my phone near me. I have a towel or a robe close to me for when I get out. In this instance, all of the towels that were present were decorative towels, placed very perfectly. They're decorative towels. Usually we don't use those kinds of towels in a bath. The purse and the phone were on the counter, and I don't take my purse to the bathroom with me. Some people may.
Objection. Narrative not possible. That's a narrative. I'll just ask the stage director for the question.
Sure. So you noted that there were decorative towels in the bathroom, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe a towel that appeared to be for use after that?
No.
Were there any clothes in the bathroom?
No.
Is there a bathrobe in the bathroom that appears to be for use?
Not that I heard.
So you only saw decorative towels?
Correct.
You talked about the phone and purse. Were those positioned within arm's reach of the tub?
No.
Was there anything about the bath mat that you noted?
It was saturated wet.
Was there anything about Kendy's upper body that you noted and beyond the hair? And I'm going to show you 17E again.
Specifically, the blood on her face is not going in a proper direction.
Did that appear odd to you based on your training and experience?
Yes.
Were you able to observe a firearm in the tub?
Yes.
Were you able to observe a casing in the tub?
Yes.
At some point, were you present when law enforcement drained the water from the tub?
Yes.
In doing that, were steps taken to preserve evidence?
Yes. A measurement of the water was done, as well as a sample of the water was taken.
After the water was drained, were steps taken to remove Kendy from the tub?
Yes.
I'm sorry. After she was removed from the tub, were steps taken to bag her body?
Yes.
And in doing so, were steps taken to preserve any potential evidence that may be present on her body?
Yes.
Can you describe that process?
Her hands were bagged with paper bags, both were bagged and zip tied and sealed.
How far up the arm did those bags go?
Oh, probably mid-arm.
At the time that Kendy Howard was being placed into a body bag, did you continue to document as you had previously?
Yes.
Did you take photographs of Kendy once she was in the body bag?
Yes.
And permission to approach with 17L and K?
You may.
Do you recognize these photos?
Yes.
What do you recognize these photos to be?
Kendy Howard in the body bag.
Are these your photos?
Yes.
Do you accurately picture as you saw her that night?
Yes.
Move to admit 17L and K.
Any objection?
Move to publish.
You may. They are admitted.
Why did you take this photo?
It's a normal photo for us to take pictures of people's necks, always.
Is there anything about this neck that stood out to you?
In this particular picture, it shows sparing, what's called sparing.
And what is sparing?
Objection, foundation.
I'll move on.
Sounds like she was going to tell you what it was.
I'll withdraw the question for now.
All right.
Why did you take this picture?
Again, the blood is going the wrong direction.
And when you say blood, which specific area of the blood are you referring to?
The blood on the nose?
What about the blood on the cheek?
Yes. Sorry, I can't see that one.
If you need to, ma'am, if you need to step up here, if it would help your testimony, feel free to step out and you can refer to the screen better. We probably have a pointer for you.
The blood that is on her cheek has some overlay blood on it, but the blood on her nose is running in an upward position, which again is going the wrong way for somebody that has a head down in a bathtub from a gunshot wound to mouth.
Thank you. You may retake your seat. Your Honor, you previously indicated that you wanted to stop at noon.
Correct.
I'm about to veer into a different line of questioning, so I don't know if you want to stop now or not.
Sure. That's already had time to stop, so we'll stop for our lunch hour. Plan to see you all back at 1:30. Remind you not to discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. We're on a break for the informative any testimony in the case. Thank you. Mr. Rice, thank you very much. Thank you. We'll be in recess until 1:30. be seated, thank you. You may continue, Michelle.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Acevedo, was Kendy Howard's body sent to autopsy?
Yes.
And again, where would that autopsy take place?
Spokane Medical Examiner's Office.
So the body would have been transported there?
Yes.
Was an autopsy performed?
Yes.
Are you familiar generally with the process of autopsy?
Yes.
Have you seen bodies after autopsy?
Yes.
Is there anything about a body that has been examined in the process of an autopsy that's sort of obvious when you first look at it? That was a poor question. Let me rephrase that. Is there a large wound that is given to the body during autopsy for the medical examiner to use?
Yes.
What's that called?
A Y incision.
And is that typically what's done in autopsy?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to view Kendy Howard's body after autopsy?
Yes.
Can you describe the circumstances of you being able to view her body?
I was at the funeral home doing a full body exam on another deceased individual when I saw her in the prep room.
And what do you mean by prep room?
So the prep room is where they put the deceased to get them ready for funerals, viewings, things of that nature.
Can you describe where she was located?
She was located in their large prep room on a table.
Was she lying out?
Yes.
What was her state of undress at the time that you saw her?
She was not dressed at all.
Was she covered by anything?
A sheet, I believe.
When you saw Miss Howard's body lying out in this prep room, what did you do?
I went over to just examine the body once again after autopsy.
And as you did that, did you notice anything that stood out to you?
Yes.
What was that?
Significant discolorations all over her body.
Based on that observation, what did you do?
I began taking extra photographs of the body.
Permission to approach with states 18A through 18W and 18A, B, C, E, H, I, J, K, L, O, R, and U zoomed.
Okay, you may.
I'm going to flip through these again as we have been. W, V, U, T, S, R, Q, P, O, N, M, L, K, J, I, H, G, F, E, D, C, B, and A. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
What do you recognize those to be?
My photos in the prep room.
You took those photos?
Yes.
Do they accurately depict Kendy Howard's body on that day?
Yes.
I'm going to show you 18A zoom, 18B zoom, 18C zoom, 18E zoom, 18H zoom, 18I zoom, 18J zoom, 18K zoom, 18L zoom, 18O zoom, 18R zoom, and 18U zoom. Do you likewise recognize those photos as corresponding to your original photos?
Yes.
And you're not the one that actually did these zooms, is that correct?
No.
Do they appear to be accurately zoomed in from your original photos?
Yes.
I've moved to admit 18A through 18W, as well as 18A zoom, 18B zoom, 18C zoom, 18E zoom, 18H zoom, 18I zoom, 18J zoom, 18K zoom, 18L zoom, 18O zoom, 18R zoom, and 18U zoom.
Any objection? Those are needed.
Acevedo, is it common for bodies to have bruising after, let me rephrase, is it common for you to observe bruising on a body?
Yes.
Would you expect certain types of death to result in extensive bruising?
You can place more foundation.
In the thousands of deaths that you have attended, have you ever observed bruising on a body?
Yes.
In the thousands of deaths that you've observed, when you've observed bruising on a body, has that been frequent?
Yes.
Hundreds of bodies that you've observed bruising on?
Yes.
Maybe even thousands?
Yes.
Have you attended deaths that have a wide range of causes?
Yes.
Would that include things like car accidents?
Yes.
Would that include things like natural causes?
Yes.
Would that include things like gunshot wounds?
Yes.
And would that include things like strangulations?
Yes.
Would you expect to see more bruising on a body that had been through a car accident than a body that had died of cancer?
Yes.
Would you expect to see more bruising on a body that had been through a car accident than had sustained a gunshot wound?
Yes.
observed on Kendy Howard's body different from what you would have expected to see from someone who died from an interoral gunshot wound?
Yes.
Did you make documentation of Kendy Howard's body in somewhat of a systematic fashion?
Yes.
How did you go about doing that?
From head to toe.
Did you start on one side and work your way around?
Yes.
Did you at times maneuver the body to take photographs?
Yes.
Was the purpose of your photographs to document Kendy Howard's body?
Yes. Yes.
At this time, I'm going to move to publish 18A through 18W.
You may.
What part of Kendy Howard's body are we looking at in this picture?
Directly underneath her chin, and her neck.
And we see some white kind of fluffy things down below on her chest. What is that?
It's called wadding. It's preparation for the funeral home.
And underneath that wadding, what would be underneath that?
The Y incision.
Did you ever remove that wadding?
No.
And for the record, that was 18W. 18B. What part of Kendy Howard's body is this?
Her mouth, face.
18U.
This is her left foot, bottom of her left. Is your right foot.
18T.
Ma'am, if you need to step out to the seat, you're welcome to step into what we call the well chair.
I think I'm okay. Thank you, though. Your Honor. Her right hand.
18S.
Her left hand.
18R.
Her, sorry, just trying to get her left hand.
18Q.
Her back side.
18P.
Her buttocks and the back of her legs.
18O.
Sorry, that one I can't see. It's her buttocks and her right leg, right thigh.
18N.
It's her thigh of her left leg.
18M.
That is her left side of her neck and head, shoulder.
18L.
Her right shoulder.
18K.
It is her right rib area and back.
18J.
It's her left rib cage area, underarm.
18I.
It's her left side of her arm.
18H.
That is her right upper arm.
18G.
That is her right elbow and forearm, and her right side rib cage.
18F.
That is her right arm, forearm.
18C.
That is her right arm, her elbow, and part of her forearm and upper arm.
18D.
Again, her right elbow, along with part of her right side.
Is that the rib area kind of under her arm?
Yes.
Is that a different side rib than the other one you identify as a rib area? Just going to flip back to 18I.
Oh, that's the opposite side, yes.
18C.
That is her right forearm, wrist, and top of her hand.
18B.
That is her left arm, forearm, elbow, and underarm.
And 18A.
That is her left elbow and forearm. Upper arm.
Going back to the photographs that you took at the scene, when you saved those photographs, did you title them a certain way?
I did.
What did you call them?
Howard suicide?
Did you call these photographs Howard's suicide because that was your opinion?
No.
Why did you call him Howard suicide?
When we get called out to a scene, sometimes it will be labeled as such, as a car accident, a possible suicide. It was just a title for pictures.
When you were first called out to the scene, were you called out for a possible suicide?
Yes.
Did the coroner's office ever make a manner of death determination?
Yes.
When approximately was that issued?
Once the autopsy had been done and the report had been completed.
Do you recall approximately what month that occurred?
I don't.
Was it fairly close in time to her death? Within a few months?
Yes.
And what was the determination at that point in time?
It was marked as an undetermined at that time.
Permission to approach what has been marked as 19A.
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as 19A. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Did you, are the photographs that you took utilized in 19A?
Yes.
Did you review 19A to determine whether your photographs were accurately depicted in 19A?
Yes.
Did you agree with how your photographs were utilized in 19A?
Yes.
Did they match your review of your photographs?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions for you this time.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Good afternoon.
So counsel just asked you about the cause of death being undetermined, is that right?
Yes.
And your answer to that was undetermined?
Yes.
And as a coroner, you have signed documents, correct?
Yes.
And for instance, when you put your signature on something, you're signing off on something, right?
Yes.
Are they approached with
You may.
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
Is that your signature on it?
Yes, it is.
And is this a true copy?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, we move to, what is it in general, without,
It's a death certificate.
Okay. Your Honor, move to admit defense exhibit C.
Any objection?
No objection.
Exhibit C is admitted.
So, this was signed on June 21st of 2021, correct?
Yes.
On there, you have a cause of death listed, correct?
Yes.
The cause of,
Objection.
What's your objection?
Hearsay?
Well, the document's been admitted, so it can be used.
you listed here a cause of death as cervical spine cord transection, correct?
Correct.
And penetrating gunshot wound, head and neck, correct?
Correct.
Nowhere in this document that you signed on June of 2021 is strangulation marked, correct?
No.
Permission to pose question.
You may.
Permission to retrieve, exhibits, Your Honor.
You may.
Now, that document also, that was just admitted as a defense exhibit C, also puts the time of death on it, correct?
Correct.
Do you remember what time that was?
I do not.
But it was sometime around 23:05 of February 2nd?
Okay. If that's what it says.
Okay. You have 18 minutes. All right. You got a call at 5 in the morning on the 3rd, correct?
Yes.
You responded to the scene.
Yes.
When you get there, you obviously are talking to law enforcement, correct?
Yes.
And then after you talk to law enforcement, at some point you take photos, correct?
Yes.
So these photos that you took, this is 17A. You took this photo, correct?
Yes.
That's, you took these between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, right?
Okay. Yes.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay. So after the body has been in the tub for 8 or so hours, you took these photos.
Correct.
And there's still a large red tint to it, correct?
Yes.
When we drain the tub, this is 17C, you see the blood draining to the drain.
Yes.
How much blood drained down that drain in those 8 hours?
Objection, calls for speculation.
Which on the question. Now, you stated that anyone can be a coroner in Idaho if they meet a couple qualifications, right?
Correct.
You have to be a resident of Idaho for a year.
Yes.
You have to be over a certain age.
Yes.
There's no educational requirements to become a coroner, right?
Correct.
You're not a medical pathologist, right?
I'm not.
You don't have a doctor's degree.
Nope.
You have an associate's degree.
Yes.
Now, you filled out a kind of narrative as part of your investigation, correct?
Yes.
And in there, you specifically state
Objection, hearsay.
it's not hearsay, so it can't be wrong.
It's still hearsay, it's not a statement.
I'll rephrase. You had observations at the scene, correct?
Yes.
And it was your opinion that there was an obvious water line.
Objection, hearsay.
Let me rephrase. Was there an obvious water line around the body?
Yes.
Okay. Was there blood spatter on the breast?
Yes.
Was the blood spatter on the top of the right hand?
I would need to look at a photo.
Was there blood spatter on the top of the left hand?
Yes.
There was no obvious trauma to the body, correct?
And not that I could see under the water.
When you filled out your narrative for your report, did you fill that out after the autopsy?
No.
What was the question?
Are you all right, Mr. Russell?
Your Honor.
Yeah, which were-
You right?
I have been a deputy coroner since 2004. I was placed as the chief deputy in 2015.
Thank you for that clarification. And if you talk a little bit about how you have to do continuing education as well.
Yes.
You've done training as a coroner.
Yes.
You've done hundreds of hours of training.
Yes.
And that would be in addition to the thousands of actual deaths that you've attended.
Yes.
And that would be in the areas of death investigation that you previously testified to, correct?
Yes.
The manner of death determination of undetermined was in July, I think is what counsel said. Does that sound right? June or July?
June.
And at that time, was there discussion about the current state of the investigation?
Yes.
And based on the present state of that investigation, was the decision made to mark this undetermined?
Yes.
False. Answer false for hearsay.
Judge,
And defamation.
it's
I'll sustain the objection. You
May I-
can rephrase.
may I respond?
You know,
Judge, under,
You're not really approach.
well, I'll hear her response.
thank you, Judge. Under 801D1, counsel has attempted to,
You're not really use that test.
Okay. Members of the jury, I'll have you take a short recess and discuss this.
this prior statement is not hearsay and should be admitted because it has been attacked by Mr. Johnson in his line of questioning in regards to that determination. And so I do believe that at this time she should be able to talk about her prior statements about the document that counsel entered into evidence.
Maybe I misunderstood. The question was, at that time, was there discussion about the current state of the investigation? Yes, based on the present state of the investigation, the decision made to mark this undetermined. Objection was called for hearsay. So I was just going simply on the, if she's essentially answering what the consensus of the group was, then that is hearsay. But if you're saying something different, I can look at that differently.
I mean,
Maybe I didn't understand what you're asking.
really the question is basically whether or not she was aware of the investigation at the time that the determination was made. And I can rephrase it to that.
Yeah, sure.
That's-
You can say, I just thought, as it was phrased, I thought it was essentially asking what the consensus, the conversation among the group was, yeah, we should mark this undetermined. that would be hearsay, but certainly if you want to ask about her knowledge of the ongoing investigation, why she ultimately decided to return, that's fair. And I'll let you ask that. I'm assuming, Mr. Jones, I'm stating what I thought your objection was. Am I accurate in that?
Yes, Your Honor. And I want to be clear that we never, under cross, asked her about anything after this date. So anything after this date would be outside of the scope of cross. The state had no objection to the seat. We didn't ask her anything about what occurred or the investigation after that date. And so any questions related to that would be outside the scope of cross. I'm just anticipating some questions here.
All right. We'll bring in the jury.
Determination was made, were you aware there was an investigation going on?
Yes.
At the time that the determination was made, did Kootenai County have a warrant?
Yes.
A boss above you?
Yes.
And was that person a medical doctor?
Yes.
And that person had to approve of your signing that document?
Yes.
Was the information contained in that document the only available information that you had at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, man. You may step down.
Thank you.
Give these to this man.
Sure.
Nora spelled N as in Nancy, A-R-A.
How are you currently employed?
I am currently a forensic pathology consultant for a forensic engineering company called BSI, Engineering Systems Incorporated.
Are you a medical doctor?
Yes, I am.
Can you describe your educational background?
Sure. If you go back to the 1990s, I attended the University of Washington in Seattle. I then went down to Pomona, California. I went to medical school at Western University of Health Sciences. And then I went all the way out to Honolulu to the University of Hawaii to do my 4-year pathology residency program. And then in order to become a forensic pathologist, we are required to do an additional 1-year forensic pathology fellowship. So then I traveled all the way across the U.S. to Miami, Florida to do my 1-year forensic pathology fellowship.
And before we go any farther, what is a forensic pathologist?
Sure. A forensic pathologist is a subspecialty of pathology. So when you think of a pathologist, you think of the nerdy doctors that work in the lab. When your doctor, let's say, sees a funny-looking mole and takes a biopsy and they send it off to the laboratory, the general pathologist will look at it under the microscope and give your doctor a diagnosis so your doctor can decide what to do with that mole. A forensic pathologist, in that extra year of training, we study autopsy pathology. And we do autopsies, we work with forensic investigators, go to crime scenes, and we do autopsies in order to determine the cause and manner of death. We also speak with family members, answer questions that they have regarding their loved ones, and we testify in court.
Getting back to your education, do you hold any special certifications or members of any boards?
Yes, I am board certified by the American Board of Pathology. I am board certified in anatomic pathology, as well as in forensic pathology.
And are those current?
Yes, they are current.
Do you ever write, publish, or review literature in your field?
I have in the past. One of the papers that I did with another fellow forensic pathologist studied contact gunshot wounds involving centerfire rifle wounds versus shotgun slug wounds.
And do you regularly review literature in your field in order to maintain competency on new developments?
Yes, we do.
Have you ever testified as an expert witness before?
Yes, I have.
You told us who your present employer was. Can you talk about your previous employers?
Sure. Before I became a consultant for ESI, I worked as a medical examiner for the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office. I was there for 2 years, and prior to that, I was in Florida, where I worked as a medical examiner out there.
In either your time in Spokane or your time in Florida, did you have opportunities to perform autopsies?
Yes.
Do you still currently perform autopsies?
I currently do. I still do autopsies a few days a month, just to stay current, for Clark County in Vancouver, Washington.
Over the course of your career, approximately how many autopsies have you done?
To date, including the autopsies I'm still doing, it's probably close to 4,300 autopsies.
And within your various employers, have you also worked in other capacities?
I'm sorry?
With your other employers, have you worked in any other capacities besides strictly doing autopsies?
Yes, so with my current employer, I am doing autopsies 3 days a month. I am working on various different consultation cases, both criminal cases as well as civil cases.
What are the typical duties of a county medical examiner?
A county medical examiner works for the local government, whether it's for the city or the county, or sometimes in some states it's for the state. And depending on the law in that jurisdiction, some mostly non-natural deaths will come into the medical examiner's office for examination. So the county medical examiner is responsible for reviewing, determining whether an autopsy needs to be done in order to determine the cause of death.
Is there a difference between a medical examiner and a forensic pathologist?
Yes, so a medical examiner is a forensic pathologist, but they're employed by local government. While forensic pathologist is just a general term, which includes medical examiner. So a medical examiner is a forensic pathologist, but not all forensic pathologists like myself are medical examiners.
Throughout the education, residency, fellowships, and on-the-job experience you described, have you received specific training in how to do an autopsy?
Yes, we learned during our 4-year pathology residency program how to do a general autopsy, autopsies that are done in the hospital setting, so they're pretty much all just natural deaths. And then it's during our forensic fellowship, the 1 year of additional training, where we are immersed in attending crime scenes and doing all types of different autopsies on both natural deaths as well as non-natural deaths.
As part of that training, are you either educated or received on-the-job training to opine as to cause and manner of death?
Yes, so the purpose of doing an autopsy, we do the autopsy after considering the different circumstances, and we get that information from our forensic investigators. So when we take all that information together, in addition to what we find at autopsies, that's what we will use in order to determine the cause of death.
And is that different from the manner of death?
Yes, so cause of death is why is an individual dead? Did they have a blocked coronary artery? Did they have a hemorrhagic stroke? Did they have head trauma in a car accident? It's why they're dead. While manner of death is how. So there's 5 different manner of deaths. We have homicide, suicide, natural, accident, and undetermined.
You testified that you've personally done over 4,000 autopsies. Have you ever reviewed other people's autopsies?
Yes, I have.
And is it common for individuals in your field to review autopsies performed by other forensic pathologists?
It actually is quite common, especially not just Florida, but in other states where doctors are no longer at the office. Let's say they moved away, they've retired, or they're deceased. Then the doctors who are still at still at the office. We go on a rotation where we're assigned a previous pathologist case to review it, come up with our own independent opinion, and then we will go ahead and testify in court on their behalf.
Is it common for individuals in your field to review the documentation or findings of other forensic pathologists in order to form your own independent opinion?
Yes, that is something that we definitely do. We do review any information that the original pathologist has reviewed.
Permission to approach?
Amen.
Dr. Nar, I'm handing you what's been marked as States 81. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize this to be?
This is my current CV or resume.
And would you mind flipping through that just to confirm that that is your most up-to-date and accurate resume?
Yes.
Move to admit States 81.
No objection. 81 is admitted.
Dr. Nara, who usually makes a determination that an autopsy should be performed?
That determination is made by the jurisdiction. In a medical examiner system, it's up to the doctor who does the autopsy to determine whether a complete autopsy needs to be done or whether they can do an external examination. In other jurisdictions, especially a coroner jurisdiction, it's the coroner who decides that an autopsy needs to be done.
Where generally are autopsies conducted?
Autopsies are conducted in a medical examiner's office.
And generally, who is present during autopsy?
The people that are present during an autopsy are those agencies that are directly involved in the investigation, whether it's law enforcement, a prosecutor, a defense attorney, or it's a pediatric case, Child Protective Services.
Is it common or standard practice even for documentation to be done throughout the autopsy?
Yes.
What types of documentation are done?
In addition to the pathologist documenting on a diagram different findings that they see both on the outside of the body as well as on the inside of the body, the pathologist will also be assisted by an autopsy technician to take photographs of the body, external as well as internal, throughout the examination.
Is what is done in the autopsy, does that change depending on the observations of the forensic pathologist?
Yes, so not every autopsy is done exactly the same. If a case has a lot of injuries, or if it's a more suspicious case for some reason, then the doctor may decide, I may take some more samples for toxicology testing, I may do additional photographic documentation, I may do a dissection into a certain part of the body that normally may not have to do, but we want to look at the injuries a little bit better that way.
And is that something that the forensic pathologist decides as he or she is going through the autopsy?
Sometimes it's done during the autopsy if we come across something unusual. Sometimes we know if we have a heads up that a case is not your typical case or there's something suspicious about it, then we may go ahead and be proactive about doing something extra during the autopsy.
Are there times where a forensic pathologist may receive information about the deceased prior to conducting the autopsy?
Yes, ideally we would like to have as much information ahead of time. Sometimes that's just not feasible. We just might have like a limited investigation report before we start the autopsy. We may not have access to medical records before starting an autopsy, but I would say for the most part we at least have preliminary information.
And is what is provided to the medical examiner ahead of time, could that change what the forensic pathologist does in the autopsy?
So any information that we have prior to doing an autopsy, we use that as a guideline for what we're going to do, and if anything extra, like taking extra samples for testing, needs to be done.
After the autopsy, is it typical for the pathologist to generate a report?
Yes.
And what's the purpose of that?
So we take all our notes, and then after reviewing all the photographs, we generate a report. It's a formal report that goes out, and that report is a final documentation of what we found and determined during the autopsy. It documents the cause of death, and that report can also be used, for example, if family members want to know what happened, or if law enforcement needs that information, and of course, that information could be used when we testify in court.
In reviewing autopsies performed by others, do you solely rely on the report from the medical examiner informing your independent opinion?
No.
What other things would you rely upon?
When we're asked to review a medical examiner case, of course, we're going to look at the original report that the original pathologist did. We're also going to look at any and all photographs, both if they're scene photographs, if there's autopsy photographs, if there's any investigation reports, if there's any new information that has come up, we want to look at all of that.
So if you were to do an independent review of an autopsy, would you consider information that was perhaps not available to the original pathologist?
Yes, that would be any information that the pathologist had at the time and anything new since that time.
Have you ever reviewed an autopsy that was done by someone else to form your own independent opinion?
Yes, I have.
And have you ever testified to your independent opinion based on an autopsy done by someone else?
Yes.
Dr. Nara, what does intraoral mean?
Intraoral means there's an injury that is inside the mouth.
Is a gunshot a common cause of an intraoral wound?
Gunshot wound, yes, it's a type of intraoral injury.
And silly question, but that would be something that was caused by a gun?
Correct.
Have you ever personally performed autopsies on individuals that have sustained an intraoral gunshot wound?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many?
Let's see, in Florida we had a lot of gunshot wound injuries. Let's say about close to 1,000 gunshot cases in general. Intraoral gunshot wounds, maybe anywhere between 150 to 200 cases.
Are there physical injuries that are typically, or that you might expect to see from an intraoral gunshot wound?
Depending on the caliber of the gun that's used, we would sometimes see bruising on the mouth. Sometimes if their mouth is closed firmly around the muzzle, we might see what we call stretch tears on the side of the mouth. We can also see broken teeth, broken gums inside the mouth.
What about a cavity? Do you ever see a cavity inside the mouth that's caused by a gunshot wound?
A cavity, you mean like a defect?
Sure.
Yes, we would see a defect, whether it's in the roof of the mouth, depending on where the bullet went, or in the back of the throat.
Is the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office contracted to perform autopsies for Kootenai County?
Yes.
When you worked for the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office, was that same agreement in place?
Yes, it was.
And what was your job when you worked there?
I was an associate medical examiner at the Spokane County office, and the doctors, we had a rotation of when we were assigned to do autopsies that day, and if there was a case that came in from an outside county such as Kootenai County, then we would be up for performing autopsies for that county.
So did Spokane County employ multiple doctors?
Yes.
Do you recall how many worked there at the time that you were there?
When I started there, I was the third doctor, so there were 2 other pathologists working there.
Did that change before you left?
Yes, it did.
How did that change?
The 2 doctors that were there, they both retired.
And did they subsequently hire new doctors to fill those positions?
Yes.
When you worked at the Spokane County Medical Examiner's Office, did you work with a doctor by the name of John Howard?
Yes, I did.
How long did you work with John Howard?
I believe I overlapped with Dr. John Howard for about a year.
Was he one of the two doctors that was there when you started?
Yes.
And so would he be one of the doctors that was there when you left? Excuse me, was he one of the two doctors that left while you were still there?
That's right.
During the year that you worked with Dr. John Howard, did you have the ability to observe his work?
I did.
How would you describe John Howard's work when you first began working with him?
Dr. John Howard, he had a overall quiet demeanor. He came in every day and he reviewed his cases and he did his autopsies. Since I was new to the office, if I had any questions regarding policies or protocol, I would reach out to him and he was always willing to answer my questions.
Did you have opportunities to observe his autopsies?
I have observed a few of his autopsies.
Did you have opportunities to interact with John Howard towards the end of his career before he retired?
Yes, I did.
Was there a change in his demeanor from the times that you met him in the beginning when you worked with him at the end?
I don't know if there was so much a big change. I knew even from the beginning, and it was something Dr. John Howard didn't hide. He had been working close to 30 years, so he was pretty much ready to retire, and he loved to talk about how he was ready to retire.
Are you aware that there was an autopsy performed on an individual by the name of Kendy Howard in February of 2021?
Yes.
Are you aware approximately when John Howard left the Spokane County Medical Examiner's office?
Judge Willis. Response?
Not without giving a speaking objection, Judge. I'm happy to.
We approach. Sure.
Do you recall approximately when John Howard retired?
I believe it was in the summer of 2021, 2022. Sorry, I'm trying to remember I started in 2020 in Spokane, so it was a year later, 2021, it was the summer.
Getting back to the autopsy of Kendy Howard, you are aware that Kendy Howard was sent to Spokane County Medical Examiner's office for an autopsy, correct?
Yes.
You were not the person who performed that autopsy, correct?
Correct.
Who performed that autopsy?
It was Dr. John Howard.
Did you have an opportunity to review that report?
Yes, I have.
Where did that autopsy take place?
That took place at the Spokane County Medical Examiner's office.
Do you recall the specific date that it took place?
Dr. John Howard performed the autopsy on February 3rd, 2021. That was the day after she was deceased.
In your review of, let me ask this. Did you only review the autopsy, or did you also review any documentation that was associated with the report of the autopsy?
I reviewed the autopsy report as well as any photos and any other documentation relating to the case.
How was Kendy Howard's body received by the Spokane County Medical Examiner's office?
So all patients that arrive at the medical examiner's office, they come in through the receiving area where their toe tag and the body bag tag is double checked to make sure it's the right individual. The body is weighed, that's recorded, and then they're placed in the cooler until they are ready for autopsy.
Is that what happened with Kendy Howard?
Yes.
And so was her identity confirmed for beginning the autopsy?
Yes, it was.
During the autopsy, were photographs taken?
Yes, photographs were taken.
And would it have been standard procedure at Spokane County Medical Examiner's office to take photographs during autopsy?
Yes.
Are those photographs taken at different points in the procedure?
Yes, they're taken from the beginning throughout the autopsy.
And again, you have the opportunity to review those photographs?
Yes.
And it's common for experts in your field to review photographs taken during autopsy in order to form your independent opinion?
That's correct.
And in your review of the autopsy report and the subsequent photographs, did it appear that those matched?
Yes.
Permission to approach the witness with 26A through J.
Okay.
Dr. Nauer, I'm showing you what is states 26A through J. I'm just going to flip through these. Let me know if you, so just for the record, this is going to be 26B, 26B Zoom, 26C, 26C Zoom, 26D, 26D crop, 26E, 26F, 26F Zoom, 26G, 26G Zoom, 26H, 26H Zoom, 26I, 26I, zoom. Do you recognize those pictures?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
They were autopsy photographs taken of Miss Kendy Howard.
Do those, there were several in there that were notated as zooms or crops. Did those appear to be reflective of the original photographs, just zoomed or cropped?
That's correct.
Move to admit 26A through J. And Judge can lay the specific zooms and crops on the record as well, if you'd like.
Any objection? That's not necessary. They're admitted, well, including the zooms and crops.
Commission at this time to publish.
You may.
Dr. Nara, when bodies arrive at autopsy, are they typically still in the body bag?
Yes, they are.
And when they are removed from the body bag, what do you expect to see?
Whatever, if they were found outside, they would have whatever debris may still be stuck on the body. Individuals that come from the residence or the hospital, sometimes they're leaking fluid or bloody fluid. It's very common.
In your review of the photos, was there a photo of Kendy Howard's body before she was, let me back up. Are bodies typically cleaned before the autopsy procedure begins?
Yes, they are cleaned before the autopsy.
Was there a photograph that was taken of the body before it was cleaned?
Yes.
Did you make any opinion about the state of the body before it was cleaned?
No, we always take photos as is. The body is first looked at inside the body bag, and then once the body's clean, we take additional photos.
Before the body of Kendy Howard was cleaned, was there anything unusual noted about the body?
Aside from her injury,
Right.
No.
So the photographs that I'm going to show you, those would be after her body's been cleaned?
Yes.
Let's start with 26B. What do you recognize these to be?
This photo is showing her legs from the knee area down to her feet.
Dr. Murph, I know you're sitting outside. If you need to enter what we call the well and stand here to see the photos better, you're more than welcome to, if that helps you.
Just right in front.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Dr. Nara. 26D crop. Which part of Kenny's body is depicted in this picture?
So here we're looking at her right, pretty much her entire right arm.
Is there anything in this picture that you noted?
Can I get closer to this one?
Okay.
Would you like a pointer?
So if we look at her right upper arm here, there's 3 areas of blue purple bruising.
And Dr. Nara, I'm sorry to take you back to that when we were just looking at this 26B. Did you note any injuries in that photograph?
You can see here, this is the right knee. There's some bruises here on the right knee area and the front of the right lower leg, and some faint bruises here on the inside of the left thigh.
26E.
Looks like the outside of the wrist. I can't tell which left or right, but there's bruising here and here.
26F.
We're looking at her legs again here. There's some bruises we saw earlier here on the right knee, and then there's some here on the left thigh and the left knee area.
This is the zoom of 26F that we just looked at.
Here we're looking at the top of the right knee. There's bruising here that we can see, and something here too. Looks like a bruise on the right calf.
26G.
Going back to the right knee, right here, we saw this bruise here, bruising here. Below the knee, there's some bruising here on the front of the right lower leg.
26I.
This is a zoomed out photo, pretty much showing the same thing. Bruises here on the right knee, the right lower leg, as well as here on the left leg and thigh.
26I zoom. So this would be a zoomed in of what we just looked at.
This is a zoomed in of the left inner thigh and some bruising here.
Now you can have a seat. Okay, Dr. Mara, we looked at some of these injuries in close-up. What would your opinion be of the cause of some of these injuries?
The injuries we saw were called contusions or bruises on her arms and legs, and that's could be from a variety of different reasons, whether something struck a leg or she bumped her leg against something.
In your independent opinion, are these injuries consistent with occurring before death?
The bruises that we saw, they all had pretty much like a blue-purple hue to them. They looked pretty recent. They could have occurred that day, could have been the day before.
Should we take a break this time?
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to take 10 minutes. Maybe recess for 10 minutes.
Two are the X-rays. One was taken at the time of autopsy, and the other two are the X-rays.
And just for the record, L and K are the X-rays?
L and K, yes. Yeah.
Y, and as I'm flipping through, just let me know if you don't recognize these.
Okay.
20X, 20W, 20V, 20U, 20T, 20S, 20R, 20Q, 20P, 20O, 20N, 20J, 20I, 20H, 20G, 20F, 20E, 20D, 20C, 20B, and 20A. Did you recognize all those photos?
Yes, I do.
And are those the photos from Kendy Howard's autopsy?
Yes.
And are those the ones that were taken contemporaneously?
Yes.
Likewise, I'm going to show you these zooms. Let me know if these don't correspond with an original photo. 20B zoom, 20C zoom, 20F zoom, 20I zoom, 20J zoom, 20K zoom, 20L zoom, 20M zoom, 20N zoom, 20S zoom, 20J crop, 20W zoom, and 20W zoom 2.
Okay.
Do those all correspond with an original photo?
Yes.
They appear to be altered other than zoomed or cropped?
No.
All right, it's time I would move to admit all of those photos.
Objection. Those are admitted. First, as with before, Doctor, if you need to step into the well, I don't know if you still have that paper.
Dr. I think that would be a good idea. We can hand you that pointer again. Okay, Dr. Nara, I'm going to show you 20Y first. Do you recognize that to be?
Here we're looking at a photo of her left hand. It's a close-up of her left thumb, and there is a superficial cut here on the left thumb next to her pointing finger.
20X.
Also looking at the same left thumb. We just looked at this. This is on the other side of the thumb, another superficial cut.
20W.
And this is a close-up of that superficial cut that we just saw.
Would you describe that as a laceration or an abrasion?
An abrasion is like a scraping of the skin versus laceration is an actual cut. I know Dr. John Howard described it as a linear abrasion. Just looking at the photos, it looks like it could be a lacerated abrasion. It could be both, but it's superficial.
And I'm sorry, for the record, 20V.
This is looking at the outside of her left hand. This is her pinky finger. There's bruising here and bruising here.
20S.
We saw a similar photo earlier, looking at a right upper arm area. We saw these 3 bruises here.
20Q.
Looking at the inside, I believe this is the inside of the right elbow. We can see a close-up of this bruise here.
Is that likewise depicted in 20O, or is that a different bruise?
I think it's the same one. This is just more zoomed out so we get a perspective of where it is on her arm.
Is there something else observable in this photograph?
Look at the inside of her right forearm up here. You see some discoloration. It kind of looks like orange peachy discoloration here on the inside of the right forearm.
And that was also depicted in 20R?
Yeah, so this is a close-up, a zoomed-in photo showing this burn here on the inside of her right forearm.
Are you familiar with what skin slippage is?
Yes.
What is skin slippage?
Skin slip is when the top layer of the skin kind of comes off. We can see that right here. Sometimes if you scrape the top layer of the skin really superficially and you kind of brush it off, that would be skin sloughing or skin slip. In pathology, we also use the words skin slip when a body's decomposing and it's breaking down, the skin starts breaking down. We also see it in bodies that are immersed in water for an extended period of time, and then the skin would start slipping off.
Are the pink areas that we see in this picture skin slippage in your opinion?
These darker pink, discolored areas, no.
So when you said that you observed skin slippage in this photograph, you are not referring to the pink areas?
This dark pink discolored areas, I am not.
In your opinion, are those pink colored areas an injury?
Yes.
What kind of injury?
I mentioned earlier, they look like they're consistent with some type of burn.
20P.
Here we're looking at, so like, again, the inside of the right forearm, we saw this pink discoloration up here. We see additional bruising on the outside of the right forearm.
20N.
Here we're looking at, on the outside of her right breast, there's a bruise right here.
E.
We look here at her left jaw area. You can see this area of like pinkish purple discoloration. There's a bruise area. This is an area of bruising here on the left jaw, upper neck area.
20D.
This is looking at the left side of her face. You can see a little bit of that bruising here on her left jaw. You can see also some bruising on the left side of her nose.
Is there any swelling observable in either this picture or the previous?
Just looking at this, it's kind of hard to tell without comparison, but it looks like this, it's more full on this side. Could we go back to the
Absolutely. And that, just go back again, back to 20E.
And then here again, it just looks a little more full. And I think there was another one where we could look at those sides.
I'll show you 20B.
Yeah, so the left side of her jaw appears to be more full than the right side of the jaw.
And while we're looking at this picture, are there observable injuries in this picture?
Yes, so looking at the front of her face, we saw this bruise on the left side of her nose, and then looking at her mouth, which is slightly open, there's bruising here and bruising here on both sides of the lower lip, and also a bruise on the tip of the tongue.
20C.
Another photo showing the same bruises left side of the nose, as well as bruising on the left side of her lower lip and the tip of her tongue.
20F.
It's a close-up of that bruise we saw on her left jaw. See it here on the left side of her chin, jaw, and upper neck area.
H.
It's a close-up showing bruising, and there's also some cuts here on the left lower lip.
20I.
So to look at the injury better, we pull the lower lip down. You can see the bruising here, and there's cuts here on the inside of the lower lip.
You, Dr. Nardi, can have your seat. I want to take you back to the injury that you described as a burn. Recall that image?
Yes, I do.
If you are performing an autopsy personally and you observe a burn to the body, is there anything that you would do to investigate that burn further?
Depending on the extent of the burn, I mean, someone's charred, that's one thing. But if I see just like a single area where it looks to be a burn, I'll take additional photographs. And the other thing we also do at autopsies, we can make a little incision into that area and then take a section to look under the microscope.
Was that done in this case?
I believe that was not done in this case.
Let's talk about the injury to the head. Was a wound documented that was not readily able to be seen in those pictures?
A wound documented in the head. that I knew from reviewing the autopsy?
Yes.
Yes, so we saw there was a bruising to the tip of the tongue. So inside the mouth, there is an intraoral gunshot wound.
Can you describe how that intraoral gunshot wound went through the mouth?
Sure, so the bullet traveled through the tongue. It traveled into the pharynx, which is the tube in the back of your throat, so you breathe and digest. It goes through C2, which is your second cervical spine in your neck, went through the spinal cord in your neck, and then the bullet came to rest in the soft tissues in the back of the neck.
Now, based on the location of that wound, it was not able to be easily photographed, is that correct?
Correct. With intraoral gunshot wounds, sometimes people have a lot of rigor mortis where they become really stiff, and we don't want to break the jaw unnecessarily or break our teeth, God forbid. So we open the mouth as much as we can at autopsy and try to take a look. Sometimes we'll take a flashlight to see if we can see the gunshot wound defect inside the mouth. Sometimes we can't see it, sometimes we can see it depending on the location.
In this particular case, was there anything about that, the injuries to the mouth, that was not present that you might expect to see in an intraoral gunshot wound?
So in this case, aside from the injuries I already saw, she's got a large injury through the tongue. She didn't have any injury to the teeth. We saw the photo where the lower lip was pulled down. You can see the teeth were intact. The gums were all intact.
Is that unusual in an intraoral gunshot wound?
Unusual? No.
In this particular case, was a trajectory rod utilized?
Yes, a trajectory rod was utilized.
Can you describe what a trajectory rod is?
Sure. So at time of autopsy, sometimes they're metal rods, sometimes they're plastic rod. We use them to show that the direction the bullet traveled. It gives a nice overall view. It's a general path, but it allows us to photograph that document, do a photographic documentation to show did it go in a downward direction, did it go left to right. It's another tool that we use at autopsy.
And was that utilized in this case in order to obtain a trajectory of the bullet?
Yes, it was.
And was that photographed?
Yes.
And published U20J?
So you can see the metal rod going in through between her teeth. This one is just showing general direction that it's going in a front to back direction.
You also mentioned when I was initially showing you photographs that there were some x-rays that were done. You recall that?
Yes.
What is the point of taking x-rays during autopsy?
So all individuals that come to the medical examiner's office receive an x-ray. And especially if they have suspected fractures or a retained foreign body, then we definitely will take expert x-rays to take a look at that.
And do the x-rays also help in determining trajectory?
They can, yes.
I'm going to show you 20L zoom. What do we see in this picture?
I'll just step up real quick. So we're looking at the front of the skull here. And these are just, I think these are on the body bag. It's like anything that's like metallic will show up as being radio opaque or just like whitish color in x-ray. But here's the projectile, the bullet. There's some small fragments here as it went through the second cervical spine. The majority of it is here, the soft tissue behind the spine. So this is front and this is the back.
Based on your review of the documentation, was a trajectory, a continuous trajectory of that bullet?
So the tongue's not really going to show up on x-ray because it's not bone, but we see the upper jaw here, lower jaw here, so you know the tongue sits right in there. So as it travels through the tongue, through the second cervical vertebrae, it's going in a slightly downward direction.
Have you ever reviewed any literature or had any experience with intraoral gunshot trajectory?
Yes.
Objection.
Maybe you can clarify.
Have you ever reviewed medical literature on trajectory in intraoral gunshot wounds?
Yes, I have.
Have you also had personal experience in autopsies involving intraoral gunshot wounds and determining trajectory?
Yes.
What does the, are there any, let me phrase it this way. Are downward trajectories associated with a particular manner of death?
It's not, it doesn't have a direct association, but in the literature and also from experience, we see a downward trajectory more often in non-suicides.
And when you say not suicides, do you mean homicides?
Homicide, yes.
What about an upward trajectory?
So in general, suicide, intraoral gunshot wounds, the majority of them are in an upward direction. Some of them go in a horizontal direction or parallel to the horizontal plane. And in the literature, they did document maybe like one or a couple cases where it does go in a downward, but the vast majority of suicide cases go in an upward direction.
In your personal experience, have you ever performed an autopsy involving a downward trajectory where the manner of death is determined to be suicide?
In a suicide, I personally have not observed a downward direction.
Did you ever personally have the opportunity to observe parts of Kendy Howard's body?
Yes.
How did that come to occur?
So I think that was really bad with dates. It's when I was first asked to review Dr. John Howard's report. I had asked, because there was a question of whether this was a suicide versus homicide, and I know the bullet went through the tongue, I was actually half joking when I asked did he happen to save the tongue, because I've never heard of anyone saving the tongue in an alleged suicide case, and the answer was yes. So I was still employed at the Spokane Medical Examiners at that time, so we pulled out the specimen jars. On everybody we autopsy, we'll take biopsy sections of organs in case we need to go back and take additional sections to look under the microscope, and so they're saved in a specimen stock jar in formalin as a preservative. So in that jar was the tongue, and I had the opportunity to look at it at the time.
Dr. Nauer, how unusual was it that John Howard saved the tongue?
I thought it was extremely unusual.
And just to clarify, are we talking about a sectional biopsy of the tongue, or are we talking about the entire tongue?
Dr. John Howard saved the entire tongue.
Did he save any other part of her body?
Just the usual biopsy sections of other organs, but no other organ in its entirety, except for the tongue.
In your over 4,000 autopsies that you've performed, have you ever saved the tongue?
The only time I saved the tongue was in someone who had really bad cancer that was blocking their airway and involved the tongue, and I basically took out the tongue and the whole upper airway just so we could see how bad the cancer was.
And nothing like this before?
No, nothing like this.
So, timeline-wise, you were asked to review this case, correct?
Yes.
And you said that was when exactly?
That would have been, say, 2021 was when I first, 2021, 2022, sorry, was when I first took a look.
And it's at that time that you retrieved the tongue?
Yes.
And when you retrieved it, it had been preserved, you stated?
Yes, it was preserved in formalin.
What did you do with it when you retrieved it?
So anytime you save tissue in formalin, it's a great preservative, but if you have an organ that's soft, such as the tongue or the stomach, it's going to curl up, even after a day in the preservative. So the tongue, also secondary to the injury, had become like misshapen, so I had to take several pins to pretty much put it back together so we could see the tongue in its original form as best as possible.
Were you able to pin it back in such a way that you were able to study it and observe it?
Yes.
Did you, at that time, document what you were doing?
Yes.
Did you do that in photographs?
Yes, we took several photographs.
Michelle, first witness?
You may.
Dr. Nauer, I'm going to show you what's been marked as 21A through H. Do you recognize these photos?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize these to be?
This is the tongue that I examined.
These are your photographs?
These were the photographs that the autopsy technician took at my direction.
And these accurately depict the tongue as you saw it on that day?
Yes.
What does 21H depict?
21H is a cassette that we submit to the laboratory. I went ahead and took a biopsy section of the top of the tongue just so I could look at it under the microscope.
And it's time I move to admit that series of photographs.
Any objection? They were admitted?
Dr. Nauer, what observations were you able to make about the tongue at that point in time?
That there was, the tongue has sustained significant injury.
Can you describe that injury?
It basically looked like a torpedo had gone through the tongue. It was like from the front to the back. It was completely torn up.
So, did examining the tongue at that level allow you to look at a wound path?
Yes.
Were you able to see where on the tongue the bullet entered?
Yes.
And was that top, bottom, middle, tip of the tongue?
It looked like it was towards the front of the tongue on the top.
And then did the bullet actually travel through the tongue itself?
Yes.
Were you able to make any observations about contact between the shot and the tongue?
Yes, given that there's presence of soot, which is the burnt gunpowder deposited on whatever surface it touches, there was definitely some soot on the tongue, so it's evidence of a contact gunshot wound.
What is hemorrhaging?
Hemorrhaging is essentially bleeding.
Were you able to make any conclusions regarding hemorrhaging to the tongue?
Yes.
How did you go about doing that?
So looking at the tongue just grossly or with the naked eye, I was looking for any evidence of hemorrhaging. Anytime an organ is fixed in the preservative formalin, blood tends to have more brownish discoloration. That's just what happens as it gets preserved. And I did notice there was some of that in the tongue. And I was also able to observe that under the microscope as well, that there was some hemorrhage.
Was the hemorrhaging you observed consistent with what you would expect of an injury that occurred before death?
The tongue is a very vascular organ. There's a lot of blood vessels. I mean, if you bit your tongue before, it just bleeds a lot. So an injury like that, where it's almost completely torn up, you would expect it to be bleeding a whole lot. And when I looked at the tongue, it didn't look like there was a whole lot of hemorrhage as I would have expected.
in your observations of the tongue, did the damage that you described from the tongue, was that very clearly from the wound path and not from John Howard cutting it out?
Yes, so when we remove the tongue, we cut, so as you know, the tongue kind of flaps up and down. We cut towards, like, for lack of a better word, the stalk, the back part of the tongue where your taste buds are. But we could see when I put the tongue back together, that we could see that the tears that went through the middle of the tongue, that was all from the gunshot wound.
Have you ever personally observed an intraoral wound path like that?
With that extensive damage to the tongue, I have not. I've seen where it grazes the top of the tongue, but not like this.
You previously testified that that bullet ended up in the cervical spine, is that correct?
Right behind the, yes, the spine of the neck. Yeah.
And did it actually transect a particular area?
It went through the spinal canal and transected the spinal cord in the neck.
And did it lodge in a particular place?
It lodged right behind the spine and soft tissues.
Was there a particular vertebrae?
That would be at the level of the second cervical vertebrae.
Is that known as C2?
C2.
At the time that that bullet went through her tongue and into her C2, would that have resulted in an instantaneous lights out?
A bullet that goes through the spinal cord of C2, that high up in the neck, that would, you would stop breathing right away. It's like lights out.
If a person stops breathing, does their heart continue to beat?
Yes, the heart can still beat on its own for some period of time.
And is that, in fact, because the heart and the breathing system run on separate systems?
So with the brainstem does have some regulation of the heart rate, but your heart actually has its own electrical system and can beat on its own for a while.
Did the autopsy include an internal review of various organs?
Yes.
Were the organs weighed, and were those weights noted?
Yes, all the organs were weighed at the time of autopsy.
Did you review that information?
I did.
Was there anything that was notable to you about those organs?
There was nothing anatomically wrong with any of the organs. There's no evidence of any infection, disease, or tumors, so they were otherwise pretty normal.
Was any blood noted in the lungs?
The lungs were congested, means there's some blood left there, and that's something that we see in every individual that dies, so there wasn't any more there than any other individuals that I've seen who were deceased for other reasons.
What about the stomach?
The stomach had some contents, some food contents, but there was no evidence of any blood.
Was that information notable to you?
The fact that there was no evidence of any blood in the stomach or esophagus, or even the airway, which that was documented in the autopsy report, that means Ms. Kendy Howard did not aspirate on blood. She did not choke on her own blood.
Was toxicology done in conjunction with this autopsy?
Yes.
And is that typically handled through the Spokane Medical Examiner's office?
So the samples were drawn at the Spokane office, however, they were sent out to an outside private laboratory for analysis.
Would that have been sent back to the Spokane Medical Examiner's office for inclusion in the autopsy?
Yes, the results are returned to the Spokane office.
What were the results in that case?
The toxicology results, they were negative for any drugs or alcohol. I think the only thing that came up positive was caffeine.
Did the toxicology result in this case include an expanded panel?
Yes, an expanded panel was ordered.
And so would that have included any prescription drugs that would have been in her system, such as antidepressants?
Yes.
And again, those were not present?
They were not detected, no.
Now, in your independent review, did you have the opportunity to review photographs that were taken after the autopsy?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall the source of those photographs that you were able to review?
I believe they were taken by the coroner after Ms. Kendy Howard went to the funeral home.
Did you make observations, or was anything notable to you that was depicted in those photographs?
Just noticed that the coroner's photos from the funeral home documented bruises that were more noticeable than at the time of autopsy.
Was that, the fact that they were more noticeable, was that surprising to you?
That wasn't surprising, just because in cases, especially with like child abuse cases, after we do the autopsy, we actually will keep the baby in the cooler for an extra day or two and then re-examine the skin, because bruises that we did not originally appreciate at the time of autopsy, they become more vivid, they become more visible a day or two later. And that's just from the blood that's leaked out of blood vessels coming closer to the surface of the skin.
In your review of both the autopsy and the coroner's photos, were you able to make opinions as to discolorations that were injuries versus not injuries?
Yes.
Can you describe just a little bit about how the body might discolor in a way that's not an injury?
So after our bodies deceased. I'm sure most of you have heard of livor mortis or lividity. That's just blood settling into the soft tissues, and that gives you a good idea of what the position of the body is. So if someone's deceased on their back, then you're going to have this like pink-purple discoloration on the surface of the back that's not exposed to pressure. And that's also very useful, especially if the body's moved, and you can kind of get an idea that maybe that wasn't the original position that the body was in when they died.
Is that something that you're very accustomed to seeing?
Livor mortis, yes.
And when we're talking about discolorations to Kendy Howard's body that you noted in autopsy as well as in your review of coroner's photos, were those injuries?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. So, for example, when you were in the well pointing to discolorations to Kendy Howard's body, were those injuries that she had sustained, or were they part of the body's decomposition?
So the bruises that I pointed out in the photos that we all looked at, those were all injuries.
And most of those would be due to blunt force trauma?
Bruises, yes, due to blunt force trauma.
Was there another injury that Kendy Howard had, specifically, she had a broken jaw?
Yes, she did have a fracture of her left jaw.
And would that have been in the location that you described that contained swelling?
Left jaw, yes. There was some fullness or swelling of her left jaw area.
In the course of your review of materials, were you able to review more information than was available at the time of the original autopsy?
I believe I received the additional photos that the coroner took at the funeral home and all the investigation reports from the coroner. I don't know if all of that was available at the time of autopsy.
If the coroner's photos were taken after autopsy, then they would have been available before autopsy, right?
Correct. If it was taken at the funeral home, which is after autopsy, right?
And do you have the opportunity to review some investigative materials that were done after the autopsy was performed?
I did review the file, which had some information regarding the circumstances regarding her death that could have been done after the autopsy.
When an autopsy cause of death is made, is it based on the circumstances as currently known?
Yes.
Based on your review of materials, would you rule Kendy Howard's manner of death to be suicide?
I would not.
Okay.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
So, as far as bruising, we'll start with bruising first. In an autopsy, you make note of any damage to a body, whether it's related to the cause of death or not, correct?
Yes.
And stuff like bruising, you make note of it, but you don't know the cause of this individual bruise.
Sometimes we don't.
And bruises they can differ in how long they take to discolor or the type of discoloration to show, right?
Depending on the bruise, there could be some variation of discoloration.
So, for instance, I think there's a bruise on the shoulder that has possibly the finger marks. Could you remember that photo?
That was on the right shoulder, right upper arm area.
A bruise like that could be caused, say, for instance, when sex, right?
It could be.
And lividity, we saw that in the back, that's the discoloration along the backside of the body, right?
Yes.
And additionally, where the breast was, the right breast was laying on water. What about it? Doctor, do you know how long Ms. Howard was in water, or in bathtub?
I do not know the exact time.
Do you think do you remember if it'd be around 8 hours or so?
Could have been 8 hours.
And lividity, that is when the blood settles in the body.
Blood settles out of the blood vessels into soft tissues, yes.
Now, on the, moving forward, on the trajectory of the gun, do you know what kind of gun was used in this case?
Just know it was a semi-automatic handgun.
You know if it had, how long the barrel was?
I know it wasn't a long barrel, but I don't know the exact length.
Now, when we're talking about gun angles and positions, there's a lot of unknowns when we're trying to put the pieces back together after that, right?
There could be some unknowns.
So, for instance, an upward trajectory would suggest, if it's a handgun, would suggest that a gun is pulled with their trigger with a right index finger, right?
Objection beyond the scope foundation.
She was asked about trajectory.
Judge,
No. Yes?
this is beyond trajectory. He's asking about how a gun would be held.
If you can lay foundation for the question, I don't know that's necessarily done, so.
You've reviewed literature on gunshot trajectories.
Yes, I have.
There's a lot that goes into gunshot trajectories, correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with different methods that people hold guns while using them, correct?
Yes.
And based upon your experience, how someone holds a gun can impact the trajectory, right?
Yes, I can.
And, for instance, you would agree that most intraoral gunshot wounds are suicide, correct?
The vast majority, yes.
But it is rare to have a horizontal or slightly downward aim, right?
In a suicide?
In a system.
You can get horizontal, but downward is rare.
And so horizontal is more common than downward.
Yes.
Now, how a person holds a gun would impact trajectory, right?
That's correct.
For instance, if a person grasps a gun with their index finger on the trigger, that would be an upward angle, right?
Objection, foundation be on scope.
Overruled on the scope. If the witness can answer, she can answer. I don't know if she knows that or not.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes. I can remember the exact. The person is holding a handgun with their index finger on the trigger. It is more likely to be an upward angle, correct?
Again, Your Honor, I'm going to object.
Move approach.
You can approach.
On the trigger.
Overrule the objection. Dr. Noir, if you know, you can answer. If you don't, you can answer that as well.
If you have your index finger on the trigger, or even if you have your thumb on the trigger, I can see it going in an upward direction, sure.
And if, okay. Now, you would agree that a gun going off in the mouth causes injuries, right?
Yes.
And you would agree that a gunshot going off your mouth can cause fractures, right?
Okay.
Now, the review of this, let me back up. When a person dies, do you know when a person dies, how long a heart pumps?
Are you asking, like, specifically when they stop breathing, they're brain dead?
Let's say on a, yes.
Okay. It would depend, but I know the heart, because it has its own electrical system, will beat on its own for a while. This is something I've seen observing heart transplant surgeries where they take out a person's heart before they put the good one in there, and that heart is outside the body and it's beating on its own for several minutes. Traumatic decapitations, we consider those people dead, they're not breathing, and it's very bloody because the heart still beat for a while.
But it is common for the heart to stop pumping fairly short after?
It could pump for a few minutes, I just don't know exactly for how long.
Now, you reviewed Dr. Howard's report, and you made opinions on it. You asked about your opinions on that?
Yes.
And you made note of some bruising that some pictures that he may not have noticed?
There was some bruising on the photographs that we looked at, yes.
Now, the bruising on the mouth that you saw is consistent with damage that could be caused by a gunshot.
Bruising on the mouth could be caused by a gunshot.
We talked about the body being received. Is that a careful process on transporting the body?
Careful meaning?
Is it just anyone that drops the body off, or is it, how do you receive the body?
So it would be, I don't know who Kootenai County uses for their transport service, but it would be a certain designated individual and takes it directly to the Spokane office where it would be received either by an autopsy technician and logged in.
So, does bruising occur after death, after the heart stops pumping?
She's asking if you could sustain a bruise after you're already deceased.
Yes.
Bruises can appear after you're already dead, but they would have been sustained prior.
Now, in this case, you saw the tongue had a lot of hemorrhage.
The tongue, when I examined it, had some hemorrhage in it.
Okay. So you didn't testify in the direct that there was a whole lot of hemorrhage?
Are you asking when I looked at it after it was preserved?
Yes.
I said there was some hemorrhage.
Okay. Now, do you know whether or not officers observed blood pooled in the back?
I do remember reading that either from the investigation report or the paramedic report.
You testified at a prior hearing in this case, correct?
Yes.
And since that hearing, what have you been provided?
Since that hearing, I think at the time of the grand jury hearing, I was provided all the photographs, including autopsy photographs, the scene photographs, and the funeral home photographs. I don't recall if I received any new information since the hearing offhand.
So, in your review, you would agree that it would be death by gunshot?
I do not believe Ms. Kendy Howard died from a gunshot wound.
Now, that is not what you testified to prior, correct?
Could you clarify that, please?
In the grand jury, you did not testify that Ms. Howard died by anything else than gunshot, correct?
I do not believe I was asked that specific question.
So, in your review, you may have a moment, Your Honor.
You may.
Yeah, introduce me, please.
You may.
The entirety of your testimony, pretty much for the grand jury, involved gunshot wounds, correct?
Do you object to the form of the
I'll rephrase my comment. You were asked extensively about intraoral gunshot wounds, correct?
At the grand jury testimony,
Yes.
I was asked multiple questions about internal gunshot wounds.
Now, on the
You may.
Now, you provided, you said you weren't providing any materials since, let's say, May of 2023?
Directly relating to the case from the coroner's office, from their investigation, I didn't receive anything from the coroner's office.
Have you received anything in preparation for today that was not part of the materials you reviewed prior?
Yes.
All right, and did that have an impact on your decision?
I took that into consideration, yes.
And were you provided materials from both defense and the state?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, no further question.
Thank you. Any regret?
Sure. Dr. Nara, I recall counsel asking you about discoloration of Kendy Howard's breast.
Yes.
We'll show you 20N zoom. Is this discoloration here?
You can step into the wall.
This discoloration here, what you believed he was talking about? Since I don't believe he showed you a picture.
I don't know if he was specifically asking, because I'm not sure if the question was completed, but we saw this earlier, this discrete, almost kind of an irregular circular bruise on the outside of the right breast, the right breast. But I don't recall if that's what he's referring to versus the lividity here on the back.
The discoloration to the breast, in your opinion, is that lividity or blunt force trauma?
This here is a bruise.
What about that lower part of the body?
This all here is lividity on the back.
Would that discoloration to the breast be the result of sitting in a bathtub?
No.
You can sit down. Sit back in your seat. Counsel asked you about a heart and how long it could beat after death. Do you recall that line of questioning?
I do recall.
You mentioned that you had personally observed a heart outside the body. Can you ever say that?
Yes.
How long did that heart beat?
For several minutes.
Approximately how long?
At least 10, 15 minutes of my watching it, and then I stopped watching.
And that was outside of the body, disconnected from the brain or respiratory system?
Correct. It was just sitting on a surgical towel.
Pumping.
It was beating, yes.
You recall counsel asked you about bruises after death. You recall that line of questioning?
Yes.
And you stated bruises appear after death, but they are sustained while alive. Do you recall that answer?
I do recall.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I think I was asked this earlier about bruises becoming more vivid or more observable to the eye after a while, even after autopsy. I gave the example of child abuse cases where we would intentionally hold the baby in the cooler for an extra day or two so we could see if there's any other bruises that come to light that we did not observe at the time of autopsy.
You were asked about blood pooling in the mouth. Do you recall that?
Yes.
This might be a silly question, but is the mouth connected to other parts of the body?
Yes.
And does it need to, say, airways and the stomach?
Yes.
And so if a significant amount of blood pooled in the mouth or the back of the throat, would you expect to see blood in lungs or in the stomach?
So blood is pooling in the back of the mouth. Depending on the position of the head, just by gravity, it could go down potentially into the airway or into the upper part of the esophagus, but that would depend on the position of the head.
Could the back of the mouth contain a significant amount of blood without that blood going somewhere else?
Could it just sit there? Depends on how much blood is there. Some blood can remain in the mouth.
And if the positioning of the head was such that the blood wasn't, the large amount of blood was not going into the lungs or the stomach, could it go out into the environment?
Yes.
You were asked by Mr. Johnson if you believe that Kendy Howard's cause of death was gunshot wound, and you said no.
That's correct.
Why?
Given the additional information that I reviewed, given the circumstances surrounding the death, because we don't do an autopsy in a vacuum, we consider all the circumstances surrounding her death, I believe that she did not die from the intraoral gunshot wound.
In making that decision or that opinion, did you consider the downward trajectory of the bullet?
I did consider that.
Did you consider the wound path through the tongue?
Yes.
Did you consider the level of trauma sustained to the body?
Yes.
Did you consider the swelling to the face?
I did.
Did you consider the burn to her arm?
I did.
Did you consider the unexpected amount of hemorrhage that you observed on the tongue?
I did.
Did you consider the lack of aspirated blood or blood in the stomach?
I did.
Did you consider all of those factors in leading you to the conclusion that Kendy Howard's cause of death was not gunshot wound?
I considered all of those factors.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, ma'am. You may sit down. Thank you.
Can I tender these exhibits to Madam Clerk?
You may.
Thank you.
Next witness is Reverend
Wendell Wilkins.
Good afternoon, sir. Are you Mr. Wilkins?
Yes.
You come forward, please. If you would please face my clerk and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If you have a seat here at the witness stand. You may inquire.
Thank you. Sir, can you say your whole name and spell both your first and last names?
Wendell Wilkins, Wendell W-E-N-D-E-L-L, Wilkins W-I-L-K-I-N-S.
Mr. Wilkins, where are you?
Sorry. Can I just have you pull that microphone a little closer to you just to help us all hear you? Thank you, sir.
Where do you live, sir?
Camden,
How long have you lived in Camden?
most all my life.
Are you married?
Yes.
Who's your wife?
Janie,
Did you and your wife have a couple of kids?
yes.
What were their names?
Brooke and excuse me, Kendy and Brian.
And who was older and who was younger?
Brian was older.
And are those two kids, Kendy and Brian, the biological kids of you and your wife?
Yes,
You also have a granddaughter named Kendy.
yes.
And what's her name?
Brooke,
And you have a great granddaughter, Brooke.
yes.
What's her name?
Kenley,
Where did you and your wife raise your children?
Kenley.
Okay, so did they grow up in Canyon, go to school in Canyon?
Yeah, but there was a year or so we lived in Lewiston, but most all of it in Canyon.
And was there a point then when Kendy moved out of Canyon?
Yeah, when they got married.
When who got married?
Dan Howard and Kendy.
Dan Howard here today?
Yes.
Can you please point out, describe, receipt, tell us what he's wearing?
Wearing a gray suit, light colored shirt.
When did you first meet Dan Howard?
It would have been somewhere around 91, 92, somewhere in there.
Was Kendy pregnant, or did she already have a child when she got together with Dan Howard?
She already had a child.
About how old was Brooke when she got together with Dan Howard? How old?
When Brooke?
Yeah, Brooke.
Probably 6, maybe. It was early age.
Okay. Not sure?
No, she was like 1 or 2.
Okay. All right. And after Dan and Kendy got together, did eventually they moved out of town?
Yes.
And where'd they go?
Powell.
Okay. And ultimately, did they settle in Coeur d'Alene?
Yes.
Okay. Growing up, what kind of daughter was Kendy in terms of personality?
Kendy?
Yeah.
She was go-lucky in all kinds of activities, friends. She was.
Was she outgoing?
Yes, very.
Was she positive?
Yes.
Did she enjoy life?
Yes, a lot.
What about guns? Did she like guns?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. What are you basing that on?
Well, all the time growing up, I was a hunter. Just went down to camp for a couple of weeks at a time. Brian went a few times. Kendy never went. I never knew her to shoot guns.
Did you ever see her shoot guns?
No, I did not.
After Kendy and Dan got together, got married, moved to Coeur d'Alene, did you attend various functions
Yes.
at their house?
Yes.
Like what kind of?
Graduations, birthdays, grandchildren, just a lot. Christmas, Thanksgiving, a lot of. It was, I don't know how many times a year, but it was a lot.
So in that time period, did you get to know Dan Howard?
Yes.
Did you get to know Dan Howard's view on money?
Yes.
What was that?
It was pretty conservative. It was basically his. He had pretty good control of it.
Over the years, did you spend the night at their house in Apple?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you some diagrams. We've already been a minute, we'll come on the overall. It's 2A and 2B. Let me show you this first one, it's 2A, just get yourself oriented. Are you going to see or get back a little bit help?
Yeah. Sir, if you want to step into what we call the welfare, this open area, if you want to step there. And I know that the prosecutor has a pointer, if that's helpful too.
Let me just point out a couple things. That was like garage
Yeah.
in their house, that would lead into the living room and stuff like that.
Yes.
And then is there an upstairs?
Yes.
And then is there downstairs that isn't depicted on that diagram?
That isn't what?
It's not there.
Oh, okay.
Let me show you the next exhibit there for the same type. It's been admitted as 2B. If you went downstairs, is that kind of the layout that you'd be looking at?
Looks like it, yes.
All right. And when you would spend the night there with your wife, where would you typically sleep?
I usually sleep on that black couch.
Okay, so this flat couch, right?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Take your seat. How many times do you think you spent the night there and slept on that black couch?
Yeah, shoot, quite a few times. I can't say a number because it was quite a few times.
Like over a period of 20 years or so?
Oh, yeah.
Could you hear, when you would spend the night on that black couch, things going on in the bedroom of Dan and Kendy Howard above you?
Yes.
How well could you hear things going on when you were down in that basement in Kendy and Dan's bedroom and or the attached bathroom in the hall?
It was faint, but you could understand what was going on.
Could you hear them arguing when
Yes.
you were down there? Where could you hear them arguing from?
From where I laid on the couch, their bed was straight above me. And, there's vents in the floor, upstairs, downstairs, and it echoed right through those vents.
So if they were in their bedroom, say on their bed, arguing, could you hear that?
Yes.
Could you hear the words or just the voices?
Sort of the words you could hear arguing, especially Dan, he was a lot louder than Kendy. So, yes, I could hear.
What about the bathroom across the hall from that bedroom? Could you hear like the water being turned on for the bathroom?
Oh, yeah, it echoed a lot.
Could you hear the toilet being flushed?
Yes.
Could you hear voices in the bathroom? If
Yes.
you were downstairs on that black leather couch?
Yes, you could.
Towards the latter half of 2020, did Kendy come down more often and hang out with you and your wife?
Yes.
And did that include hanging out with you, your wife, and Dan Prado?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe for us her frame of mind in that time period? So the latter half of 2020, going into January 2021.
Her coming to Kootenai that last 6 or 7 months, it was like old Kendy, just happy. She loved coming down here, no traffic. And, it was just, she was back home, a lot of friends. And that was good, she loved it.
Do you know whether or not she was planning on moving down there?
Yes.
What did you know her to be wanting to do in the future?
Of her money?
In terms of living down there?
Yeah, she come and told me, there one day that she was thinking about buying a house. And I asked her which one, and I knew the house. And she said, "We come look at it with me." And I did. It's a nice house. And needed some repairs, updates. So she worked it out where she could do it.
Did you know that she was going to divorce Dan?
Yes.
Did you know or suspect that she was in a relationship with Mr. Prado?
They never told us that, but you did maybe suspect it. When she came down, she mostly stayed at our house.
Did you know she was planning on quitting her job?
Yes.
Did
Yes.
she talk about getting a new job?
Yes.
In Canada?
Yes.
Was she depressed at all in that time frame?
Objection, petition. Understood the objection. If you could restate I'll sustain the objection as it was asked. If you could restate the question.
Mr. Wilkins, how old are you?
70.
In your 70 years of existence, have you ever seen someone who's been depressed?
Yes.
And are you familiar with signs of depression based on your 7 years of living?
I'm sure, yes.
And in that last 6 months that you were around your daughter, did you see any signs of depression?
None.
Let me take you to January 29th of 2021, okay? January 29th, 2021. all right? Several days before she died, okay? Early that morning, did you get a call, or did your wife get a call from Dan Prado?
Yeah, there was a phone call, yes.
Okay, and because of that call from Mr. Prado, did you or your wife do something?
Yes.
What was that?
I started calling Kendy, she wasn't answering. I called approximately, I think, 3 times, and finally she answered. And her voice was, she was crying. She was, you could tell she was scared. And I said, you're in trouble, aren't you? And she said, yes. And we just kept talking, and I asked her what was going on. She said, I was woke up, Dan was over me. And
Hang on.
Was there an objection?
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure where that's, so I'll go over the objection.
Just get us back on track here. Let me ask you a couple follow-up questions, all right? So, did you have a conversation with Kendy when she picked up?
yes,
And was she crying during this conversation? Did she seem to be upset?
Yes.
Did she tell you what had just happened to her?
Yes.
Can you tell us what she told you had just happened to her?
she said she was sleeping, she woke up, Dan was over, had something like maybe a pillow, she couldn't see the other hand, didn't know what was there, and she said, what are you trying to do to me? And from there, when I was talking to her, I think she had already moved to the bathroom. And she stayed in there all the time I was talking to her.
When you were talking to her, did you hear Dan in the background?
I heard him one time.
What did you hear him say?
I would never hurt your daughter.
Did you or your wife, after this conversation, call 911 of Coeur
Yes, the wife had already been trying to get a hold of Corleen. I believe she had been talking to him. And they, from what I was, the officers were coming at this out there. And Kendy was staying in the bathroom until I showed up. And we just kept talking to each other.
And how long did you talk to her?
It was a good 20 minutes probably.
Were you talking to her still when the police came?
When they came, yes, and she said, they're here. And I said, okay. And that's when we disconnected.
Later on that day, on January 29th, did she come down to Kendy Howard?
Yes.
You and your wife's house? What was her mental condition then?
She was still really shook up. She was shook up. At times, she started tearing up. And she was scared.
So we can't get into what she was telling you down in Camden, okay? But I want to ask you some questions about what you did. At some point when you and your wife were talking to her, was Dan Prado also there?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point in conversation with Kendy, when she was describing what happened, did you go and retrieve a handgun?
Yes, I did.
What kind of handgun?
There was a 380 auto handgun.
What did you do with it?
I showed it to her. I said, you need to take something. If you're going back, she said she was going back. She had some stuff to do with her job to turn in notification to, and she had to get her fingernails and that done in her eyeglasses. And the appointments were hard to get. She had to make those. And she mentioned that he already done something, so he's not going to do it again.
At some point, did you take the magazine out of that gun?
Yes.
And lay it down?
Yes. She was sitting, I don't know, 6 or 7 feet away. I showed it to her. She said, I don't like guns. And then I took the clip out and I threw it on the floor. Actually, I even laid it down on the floor. And I said, what happened to yours? She didn't know. But then when I laid that clip, magazine, whatever you want to call it, on the floor, she just pointed, that's what I saw on the floor at home.
Did she end up driving home that day?
No, the next morning. We tried talking to her and saying that she wouldn't, she had to go home.
Why?
For those nails, and no, I had to get their nails done. And eyeglasses, and the appointment to turn in her for resignation at the hospital and start the divorce papers, hopefully getting them signed.
Okay. Was that the last time you saw your daughter?
Yes.
Was that the last time you talked to her?
For me, yes.
All right. Did you end up driving up to Athol on February 2nd, 2021?
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because Kendy usually always calls in the morning, calls the wife. She didn't call, Jane woke me up. And the same, Kendy doesn't call. Well, anyway, started checking and called the hospital. No, she's not here. And called dispatch, and they didn't tell us much of anything. And then a little bit later, we found out that she was dead.
How'd you find out?
I think it was Brooke that finally called.
When did you find out that your daughter was dead?
When we got up there,
What time was that?
it was approximately maybe 9:30, 10.
All right. And so when you got up there, you mean the Howard residence in Athol?
Yes.
So did you and your wife drive up to Athol that morning?
Yes.
February 2nd?
Yes.
So you drive up, where do you park?
I parked out in a parking lot quite a ways from my house in the shop.
So before the shop?
Yes, up in front. Yeah, but yeah, it was quite a little ways from the shop and the house.
Why did you park away from the shop and the house?
Because there was people all around there, and this and that, and Wyatt, he came out and of the shop and started talking to me. And so that's where him and I visited for a little bit.
What was the substance of your conversation?
I knew she was dead. And I knew the situation that was previously. And I said, your dad did this. And Wyatt,
Go ahead.
and Wyatt stood there crying at both of us. And he had his head down and shaking it when I asked that question.
Just like Judge hearsay.
No statement, Judge.
Well, it sounds like he's about to give a hearsay statement, so I'll sustain the objection as to what Wyatt said in response.
Did White say anything, or did White do it?
When I said that, he was shaking his head. And he said, yeah.
Sustaining the objection, the jury was about the last statement as to what Wyatt responds.
When you say there were other people besides Wyatt that came out, did Wyatt come with you and your wife in the car?
Yeah, Wyatt and Tiffany both.
Is that your girlfriend?
I believe so, yes.
Did anybody, who were the other people that were there?
My wife. I don't know who recognized the other people. I never saw Dan. He never came out.
And so, were there any police still there?
Say what?
Were there any
I
police?
think there was one maybe.
All right, so that morning, when your daughter died, Dan called you, I take it?
Huh?
What time did Dan call to let you know?
He's never called us once. He never has called us or spoke to us.
Okay, so he did not call you the day that Kendy died?
No.
The next day?
No.
The day after that?
No, never.
When you drove up and parked in his driveway the day your daughter died, I assume he came out and talked to you?
No.
Did you see him come out?
No.
Why didn't you go in and find him?
I wasn't about going there. I did. If I would.
Hang on, I'm speaking up, all right? Did you end up seeing Kendy at a funeral home?
Yes.
How long after this happened? About?
Probably 4 or 5 days.
Okay. And during that time you were at the funeral home, who else was there?
Oh, shoot. There was my wife and I. There was some of my relations showed up. There was a couple of Kendy's classmates that lived towards Apple.
When you were there with your wife and those people, were you in a close spot to the person that ran that funeral home?
Excuse me?
Were you close to the person that was running that funeral home?
When it was all outside, no. And then we went in. Then we sat in the lobby for a while, and then went in and viewed Kendy. And then they went and set up for the cremation and for getting some death certificates.
During the time that you were there, did you hear Dan Howard tell you?
Yes.
Okay, how did that come to pass?
It was over, I believe it was death certificates and who was going to pay for the funeral. Or the cremation and that.
How did it come to pass that you heard Dan Howard on the telephone?
He was on speaker.
Okay, so did Dan Howard call somebody at the funeral home when you were right there?
I believe it was Wyatt that called.
Okay. And could you overhear the conversation between Dan Howard and Wyatt?
Some of it, yes.
What did, the part that you could hear, what did you hear?
There was one part there that he would pay for the funeral, but nothing extra.
The
The cremation, I mean, the cremation.
Okay, but nothing other than cremation?
Yes.
Let's talk about the funeral. Was there a funeral for
Oh, yes.
Kendy? Where did the funeral take place?
Kenya.
How long after she died on February 7th? About?
Oh, shoot. I can't really remember how many days or a week or two or whatever it was. I can't remember that. I know it was a large one.
Where was it? In Kenya.
Catholic church.
And about how many people came?
200 to 250 people. There was classmates from New York and Texas, and I can believe that there was probably close to 30 of her classmates that showed up.
Did Dan come to her funeral?
No.
Did Dan help pay for her funeral?
No.
Did Dan pay for the plot in his home down in Kenya?
No.
Who paid for that?
I paid the plot. We haven't got the stone yet. We're waiting for Brooke and everybody to get together to figure out what to put on.
I don't have any more questions for sure, but this gentleman might.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cross-examination, Mr. Johnson.
Vice President?
Yes.
Now, there was an opinion, you formed an opinion early on after passing about another person.
No.
And that opinion was expressed very vocally to the family, correct?
Yes, it was.
And do you know if Mr. Howard was instructed not to? I was wrong. You mentioned a conversation that you overheard with Wyatt and Mr. Howard, correct?
Wyatt and Mr. Howard?
Yes, Wyatt and Dan.
No.
Okay. Now, Dan paid for the cremation.
Yes.
And there was a viewing.
Yes.
And a little service there at the funeral.
Not really service, just going and then meeting with the mortuary person.
And everyone gathered together.
And there was, yes.
Okay. And the funeral at the church down Canyon was well after that.
Yes.
When you first arrived on that morning, you mentioned that law working there.
I believe so. There were vehicles that I didn't know. I don't know if they were law enforcement or maybe someone. I don't know who they were.
Did you ask to speak to him?
No.
Do you know if he was, at that point, if law enforcement are doing an investigation of these subjects?
No, I didn't know anything.
How long was your conversation with Mr. Prado when he called you on the night of the 29th?
Yeah.
No? He called you?
The night of the 29th?
Yes. The night that Ms. Howard, your daughter, you were on the phone with her?
The night of the 29th?
I'll drop it.
Yes, thank you. When you talked to Kendy on the 29th,
yes.
That was in the morning, wasn't it? Early morning.
Yes.
It wasn't at night.
It wasn't at night. It was dark, but it was not.
Right. Okay.
It was still morning.
Got it. So you were asked a question by counsel about why you didn't speak to Dan when he came up on February 2nd after your daughter was dead. Why is that?
Because I never spoke to him that night. Didn't know.
Counsel asked you a question about why you didn't ask to talk to Dan Howard when you drove up there.
I didn't think it would be a good situation.
No other questions.
Thank you, sir. Give me a second.
Jane Wilkins is next.
Good afternoon, how are you? Jane Wilkins, if you come forward, please. Let me face my curtain, raise your right hand this morning, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. If you have a seat, please.
Can you say your whole name, spell last?
Jane Wilkins, W-I-L-K-I-N-S.
What time do you live?
Can't marry.
Who's your husband?
Pardon?
Who is your husband?
Wendell.
Do you and Wendell have children?
Yes.
And what are and were the names of your children?
Candy and Brian.
And I understand from recently speaking to your husband that they grew up in Canada?
Yes.
How did you and your husband?
Yes.
And went all the way through high school in Canada, is that
Yes.
right? How did your daughter do in high school?
No. There.
Okay. Was your daughter a happy person or not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did your daughter eventually leave Canada?
Yes.
Why was that?
She left right after high school, and then she came back, and then she got married, and then they moved.
Got married to whom?
Dan.
Dan Howard.
Dan Howard, yes.
Can you please point down Howard out close and tell us where he is and what he's wearing?
Gray suit right behind the monitor thing.
Growing up with your daughter, did you get an opportunity to learn her attitude towards guns?
Yes.
What was that?
She never ran guns. We never went hunting with the guys or shooting.
Growing up, or getting older, after Kendy married Dan, and they went to Coeur d'Alene, did you on occasion go to Coeur d'Alene and spend holidays with them?
Yes.
And did that go on for 20 plus years or whatever?
Yes.
During that time, did you get to know Dan?
Yes.
Did you get to know Dan's attitude towards money?
Yes.
What was that?
He was tight. Had a cow over anything she spent.
Towards the latter half of 2020, did Kendy start coming down to Candy Island a lot?
Yes.
Would you come down when Dan was in the last work?
Yes.
And how long did you spend down there?
The weekend.
Okay. What was her frame of mind during that latter half, 2020 to January 21?
She was good. She was happy. She was ready to move on.
Was she looking forward to the future?
Yes.
Did she express to you what her future held for her?
Yes.
What was that?
She bought a house. She was really excited about that, and she wanted to open up a little secondhand antique store.
When she was down there, did it often happen that you and your husband, Kendy and Dan Prado, hung out together?
Yes.
Often?
Well, we hung out with Dan before Kendy came down.
I get that. But when Kendy started coming down, did the four of you also hang out?
Yeah.
Okay. So I assume that you and your husband were accepting of Dan Prado?
We never knew anything was really going on until a long time. We knew their friends. They both been best friends.
What sorts of things would the four of you do during that time frame, say 2020?
At our house, everybody usually comes to our house, and we have bonfires and stuff. So most of it was there. We'd go fishing. We'd go bowling. We'd go to NRA events.
Okay.
Out to eat. Hang with friends.
And did you, are you on Facebook?
Yes.
Did you ever take photos of the four of you doing those types of things?
No.
And
I don't take pictures.
did anybody ever take photos of the four of you doing those things? That get posted on your Facebook?
Yeah, stuff we were doing. Yeah.
And so if someone were looking at your Facebook back in the latter part of 2020 or January 21, would they see pictures of the four of you together?
No.
Would they see pictures of the four of you doing things on Facebook?
I think so.
Okay. How often would you talk to Kendy?
Most every day.
When would you ever talk?
Usually after work. Or on our way home from work most time.
Would she call you at times from the bathtub?
Yes.
How often would she call you when she take a bath?
She took it out every night.
No.
So it was just like, if, you know, most time it was texting by that time.
Okay. When she would text you, was that on a regular basis?
All the time.
Did you get Facebook Messenger?
Yes.
Did you do that basically on a daily routine with your daughter?
Probably.
Let me take you to January 29th, 2021, okay?
Mm-hmm.
At some point in the early morning hours, were you and your husband working?
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
Daniel called and said he didn't know what was going on at Kendy's, but something bad, and I just hung up and called 911.
Did your husband continue to talk to your daughter?
I talked to her first. Oh, that's what I talked to her first. And then I get rid of the phone and called 911.
Did you report to the 911 operator what you knew or thought you knew was
I
going on?
just said something bad's happening and give an address.
Your address and Apple?
Yes.
Later on that day, did your daughter come down to Canada?
Yes.
And how was her mental health condition there? What was her demeanor?
She was a mess.
What do you mean?
She was just sobbing and, you know, just went on what happened, told us what happened.
Did she end up leaving?
About 10 the next morning.
And did you and your husband try to talk her out of that?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have any success?
No.
Why?
Because she said she had to get home because she had an eye appointment and she had that appointment. She was seeing a lawyer Monday. She was giving her notice Tuesday. And so she had to go home to take care of that stuff, she said.
Okay. Did you and your husband drive up to Athol on February 2nd, 2021?
Yes. Yes.
How time did you get there?
I think it was around 11 or 12.
And what was the reason you and your husband drove up from Candy Island to Athol?
Well, we were told what happened. We didn't know where else to go, so we went out there to see if anybody was there.
Okay. Do you remember who told you what happened?
Brooke.
Okay. What happened when you got up to the house in Athol?
Wyatt, his girlfriend, came out to the rig.
Did Dan ever come up to you?
No.
Did Dan call you that day and then
No.
the following day?
No. I haven't talked to Dan since December 26, 2020.
Was there a point in time after she died where she was at the funeral before she was cremated?
Yes.
And were you able to listen in on a conversation, telephone conversation Dan had?
Yes.
Another person?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
I think it was the funeral director. And Dan would answer his phone, so I think then Wyatt called.
Not here to say this point, so I'll leave it.
Did you hear Dan's voice?
Yes.
Did you recognize Dan's voice?
Yes.
And you heard the voice of another person in this telephone conversation?
No.
Was that other person there at the funeral that Dan was
Oh,
talking to?
Wyatt?
Yeah.
Yes, he
Yes, okay. Can you tell us the gist of that conversation?
His last statement is just like these statements from Wyatt would be hearsay. I'm not trying to say it again. Tell me
The statements from Wyatt would be context for the admissions from counsel's client.
So I'll overrule the judgment. Any statements by the defendant are not hearsay. This is part of the lawsuit. Statements made to him are not to be considered the truths of matters, but rather just explain the conversation.
Ma'am, can you tell us the gist of that conversation?
Yeah, Stan was telling the funeral director that he'd take care of everything, blah, blah, whatever the family wanted, this and that. Then later it was, he wasn't paying for anything else.
And so did Dan pay for his wife to be treated?
Yes.
Did Dan pay for the funeral held afterwards?
No.
Did Dan come to the funeral held afterwards? Did Dan come and be present, or did he pay for her burial?
No. She hasn't been buried yet, but she has the plot in the...
Who bought that?
We did.
Judge, the rest of my direct is going to include a number of Facebook Messenger texts. It's a bit lengthy, it's going to run past 5, rather than start and stop at some point, between the court being able to stop today.
That's fine. Okay, we'll recess for today at this time. That's great. I know you're going to say all the time, I'm not going to insult you. I just have to remind you always to not necessitate myself and anything else. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Thank you. Here's seats. All right, we'll drink this time. We'll be at recess this time.
You say I make you nervous, a tragedy, I'm a beautiful disaster, a reckoning. You wonder how I got this way.